What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another amazing Naruto story. What if Naruto entered a high-stakes racing tournament? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Naruto's afternoon shift at Ichiraku Ramen had been nothing but endless orders of miso, pork, and the occasional special request that he knew he'd screw up. His apron was stained with broth, and the smell of soy sauce clung to him like a second skin. "One pork ramen, extra garlic," Naruto called out, tapping the order on the counter and shooting a thumbs up to the cook in the back. The old man, Tucci, barely looked up, too focused on keeping the orders flowing. His daughter, Ayame, was at the register, chatting up a couple of regulars. Naruto turned to the next customer, not really in the mood but faking his best grin. "Hey there, welcome to Ichiraku, what can I get you?" Before the guy could respond, a snippet of conversation from the corner table caught Naruto's ear. "I heard it's gonna be huge," one man said, leaning over his bowl of noodles, talking low to his friend. "A lot of people from the 5 nations are signing up for this tournament." His friend slurped up some ramen before replying, "Yeah, I heard about it too. But what I want to know is who's gonna be the favorite. Someone from Iwa, maybe? Those guys are crazy." Naruto zoned out of his own customer interaction, eyes flicking toward the two men. Hello?" The customer in front of him waved a hand. "You gonna write this down?" Naruto blinked, snapping back to attention. "Right, sorry, what was it again?" "Chicken ramen, extra green onions." "You good, man?" Yeah, sorry about that," Naruto muttered, scribbling the order down. But his ears were still tuned in to the conversation at the corner table. The first guy chuckled between bites. "No way, Iwa's got some good drivers, but Kumo? Highest traffic incidents in the country. It's gonna be wild." Naruto paused mid-order. "Drivers?" He almost dropped his notepad when the next sentence came out of one of the men's mouths. "And don't forget the tracks. This isn't some amateur backstreet shit. This is the real deal, man." Naruto's eyes went wide. His heart raced with the news. Racing? His brain could barely process the thought. Racing wasn't just a hobby for him, it was his passion. Since he was a kid, he'd been obsessed with cars, always sneaking over to Sasuke's house to play racing games and binge-read whatever motor magazines he could scrounge up. He'd even built a mini racing track out of scrap wood once, much to Kushina's horror. She'd called it a death trap, but Naruto called it engineering genius. His customer raised an eyebrow, clearly not impressed by Naruto zoning out again. "Yo, man, you okay? You seem like you're..." "Yeah, fine, totally fine." Naruto forced a smile, jotting down the final detail of the order. "One chicken ramen, extra green onions, coming right up." The customer gave him a suspicious look but said nothing as Naruto darted back to the kitchen, where he could overhear more of the racing talk. "So when is it happening?" the second man asked. "Next week. You'd have to be a moron to miss it." "Hell, I'm not even into racing, but I'll be there for the chaos." Naruto stood behind the counter, pretending to wipe down a few bowls. "A racing tournament, huh?" If it was as big as these guys were making it sound, there was no way he could miss it. Naruto's thoughts swirled as the two men continued, but one line cut through his daydreaming like a sharp blade. "Yeah, and the winner takes home, what, 50 million ryo?" Naruto's notepad hit the floor with a soft thud. 50 million ryo? That was enough to make anyone's head spin. For Naruto, it felt like the universe was slapping him in the face, practically begging him to pay attention. He watched as the two men stood up to leave, still chatting about the event. Without thinking, Naruto leapt over the counter, his apron flapping behind him like some ramen-scented superhero cape. He slid in front of the men just as they reached the door. "Hey, sorry to bother you guys, but did you say something about a racing tournament?" The two men looked at him, slightly bewildered. "Yeah?" one of them said, eyebrow raised. "Why, you into racing or something, kid?" Naruto scratched the back of his head, grinning nervously. "Yeah, kinda. I mean, I really like cars and racing. Could you maybe tell me more about this tournament?" The men exchanged glances, chuckling to each other like Naruto was some wide-eyed kid asking for directions to a candy store. "Sure, kid," the taller one said, fishing something out of his jacket pocket. He handed Naruto a crumpled-up poster. "They've been handing these out on the street. Figured we'd check it out. Looks like a good time." Naruto grabbed the poster, eyes darting over it. The image of sleek, roaring cars racing under bright stadium lights made his heart pound. This is it. The shorter guy patted Naruto on the shoulder as he opened the door. Yeah, kid, it'll definitely be a blast to watch. Watch? Naruto repeated, his voice almost a whisper. His eyes gleamed as he clutched the poster tighter. Yeah, sure, but watching wasn't what he had in mind. Not at all. The men gave him a wave and headed off to the parking lot. Naruto barely noticed as they climbed into their cars, his mind buzzing with the sound of screeching tires and roaring engines. He glanced down at the poster in his hands. His lips moved as he muttered to himself, the world around him fading into background noise. 50 million ryo. Pedestrians walked by. Cars honked. Life in the bustling streets of Konoha moved on as usual. But Naruto Uzumaki? His life was about to change. And he wasn't just going to watch. It was another typical Friday at Sasuke's uncle's garage, the smell of oil thick in the air as Sasuke worked on some guy's beat-up sedan. Shisui leaned against a toolbox, flipping through a magazine about houses, occasionally muttering something about apartments they'd never be able to afford. Naruto barged in, hands stuffed deep in the pockets of his Ichiraku ramen apron, his mop of blonde hair still messy from a long shift. Yo, Sasuke, you won't believe what I heard at work today. Sasuke didn't look up from under the hood. Can't believe anything you say, so why start now? Naruto ignored the jab, bouncing on his toes with excitement. There's this huge-ass racing tournament. Like, Continental. And guess what? Winner gets 50 million freaking ryo. That caught Shisui's attention. 50 million? He whistled, standing up straight. Shit, that's not chump change. Sasuke slammed the hood shut, wiping his hands on a rag as he finally looked at Naruto. And you think you're gonna enter this thing? I'm gonna enter it, bastard. Naruto grinned, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. All I need is a car. Shisui snorted. And a brain, maybe. Shut up, Shisui. I've got this, alright? The only problem is, well, I don't exactly have a car. Sasuke raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms. And what, you thought I'd just hand over mine? What, you gonna strap an engine to your bike? Naruto scratched the back of his head, eyes darting toward the far end of the garage where some customers' cars were parked. Actually, I was thinking maybe you could let me borrow something like that. Both Sasuke and Shisui followed his gaze. There, gleaming under the dim workshop lights, was a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS, sleek, vintage, and absolutely not something a broke 19-year-old should be asking to borrow. Especially since it belonged to Hiyashi Hyuga, one of the richest, and most terrifying, men in Konoha. Shisui doubled over laughing. Oh man, that's rich. Borrow Hiyashi Hyuga's car? You've officially lost it. Sasuke's voice dropped. You must be out of your goddamn mind, Naruto. Naruto's grin widened, unbothered by the cold stares he was getting. Come on, Sasuke. You guys are gonna test drive it, right? At least let me take it for a spin. Just around the block. He won't even know. Sasuke pinched the bridge of his nose, groaning. This is the dumbest idea you've ever had. And that's saying something. Hey, dumb ideas are my specialty, remember? Naruto gave a thumbs up, as if that was something to be proud of. I just need to see how it handles, you know? I don't even have to borrow it, I just want to drive it a bit cause it's a cool car. Come on, Sasuke. What's the worst that could happen? Sasuke and Shisui exchanged glances. The worst? Sasuke's voice was flat. I dunno, maybe Hiyashi finds out, murders us in our sleep, and we disappear from existence? Sound about right, Shisui? Pretty much, Shisui added, trying, and failing, to hide his grin. Naruto, you don't even know how to drive a car like that. Naruto scoffed. What? I've driven before. You've driven your mom's Nissan, Sasuke shot back. This is a Chevelle, not some grocery getter. Naruto puffed his chest out. A car's a car. How different can it be? Sasuke looked ready to strangle him. Very different, you idiot. Shisui leaned against the workbench, watching the back and forth like it was the most entertaining thing in the world. Honestly, Sasuke, maybe you should let him do it. I mean, if Naruto dies in a fiery crash, at least we won't have to listen to him bitch about this tournament anymore. Naruto flipped him off, but kept his eyes on Sasuke. Come on, man, you know you want to see how I'd handle it. Sasuke glared at Naruto for a solid minute, his jaw clenched, before letting out a long, exasperated sigh. If you crash this thing, I'm leaving your ass on the side of the road. Deal, Naruto exclaimed, punching the air in victory. Hold on a second, Shisui cut in. We're actually letting him drive it? This is insane. You realize that, right? Sasuke muttered a curse under his breath. I know, I'm fully aware. This whole thing is fucking insane. He shot Naruto a deadly look. But if anything happens to this car, you're dead. Got it? Naruto nodded enthusiastically. Got it. Not a scratch, I swear. With a look of pure regret, Sasuke reached into his pocket and tossed Naruto the keys. One lap around the neighborhood. One. And if I see so much as a fingerprint on this car that wasn't there before. I know, you'll kill me. Naruto practically skipped over to the car, flinging open the door with way too much excitement. Sasuke's eye twitched. For fuck's sake, be gentle, Sasuke hissed, watching Naruto settle into the driver's seat. Naruto's fingers danced over the steering wheel, eyes wide like a kid on Christmas. Oh man, this is so cool. I could get used to this. Don't get too comfortable, Sasuke warned, crossing his arms and watching him like a hawk. You're not keeping it. Naruto grinned at him through the open window. Yet, Shisui shook his head, arms still crossed. This is going to end so badly. Naruto fired up the engine, the deep growl of the V8 sending a thrill through him. Listen to that purr, man. Oh, this is gonna be awesome. Just go already, Sasuke growled, rolling his eyes. Naruto gave a playful salute and slammed the gas. The car lurched forward, tires squealing as he zoomed out of the garage. Fucking hell, Sasuke muttered, watching him tear down the street. Shisui laughed. Well, if he crashes, at least we'll know where to find the body. Assuming there's a body left. Sasuke rubbed his temple, regretting everything about this decision. Minutes ticked by, and the sound of the Chevelle's engine faded into the distance. Sasuke paced by the entrance, glaring at the empty road, tension building in his shoulders. Shisui had gone back to flipping through his magazine, completely unconcerned. Finally, the unmistakable roar of the car returned, and the Chevelle pulled back into the garage, smooth and undamaged. Naruto hopped out, grinning like an idiot. See? No scratches, no crashes. I told you I could handle it. Sasuke let out a sigh of relief, though his scowl stayed firmly in place. You're still an idiot. Naruto tossed him the keys. An idiot who can drive. Shisui looked up from his magazine. Yeah, well, let's see how much of that confidence you've got when you've got to explain to Hiyashi that you joyrode his vintage money pit. Naruto waved him off, peeved, like he'd ever find out. He stretched, looking way too relaxed for someone who just narrowly avoided death. No harm, no foul, right? Sasuke glared at him, keys clenched in his hand. Just get out of here before I change my mind about killing you. Naruto laughed, backing toward the door. Alright, I'll see you guys later. As Naruto disappeared, Sasuke turned to Shisui, shaking his head. We're so fucked. Yep, Shisui agreed, flipping another page. But hey, at least we'll die in style. Sasuke groaned, already dreading whatever insanity Naruto was bound to get into next. Little did they know, the real trouble was just getting started. Naruto walked home that night, his hands jammed into his pockets, the crumpled poster from the tournament stuffed inside his jacket. His thoughts weren't on the usual stuff, how his feet hurt from standing all day at Ichiraku, or how he had ramen broth splashed all over his sneakers. No, this time, his mind was locked on one thing and one thing only. 50 million ryo. 50 million. He muttered to himself, eyes glazed as he wandered down the dimly lit streets of Konoha. That's enough to buy a freaking island. Or like 100 cars. Or a house with a goddamn pool. I could finally move out of Mom's place. He kicked a pebble down the road, barely noticing a cat darting out of his way. His mind continued racing. 50 million. Naruto repeated like a mantra. I wouldn't even need to work at Ichiraku anymore. I could own Ichiraku. No, screw that. I could own every damn ramen joint in the city. As he got closer to his house, he could already see the lights on inside. He sighed. Home sweet home. If your definition of sweet included an overworked mom who constantly nagged him about getting his act together. Great. Here we go, Naruto muttered, bracing himself as he swung open the door. I'm home, he called out, kicking off his shoes and tossing his jacket on the nearest chair. In the kitchen, Kushina's voice echoed back, followed by the clink of a wine bottle hitting the table. Naruto strolled in and found her exactly where he expected. At the dining table, bottle of wine in one hand, TV remote in the other. The news flickered on the screen, but Kushina didn't seem to care much, eyes half-lidded from a long day at the hospital. "How was work, kiddo?" she asked lazily, swirling the glass before taking a sip. Naruto shrugged, avoiding the details. You know, same old, same old. Ramen, noodles, more noodles. What's for dinner?" Kushina, without even looking up from the TV, lazily waved a hand toward the fridge. "Figure it out, there's leftovers, or something." Naruto rolled his eyes, opening the fridge to find, well, not much. A sad-looking container of rice, a couple of vegetables that were probably older than him, and some takeout sauce packets that had been there since he could remember. Looks like it's gonna be one of those days, he thought, slamming the fridge door shut and heading straight to his room. "I'll just make a cup of ramen or something," he muttered under his breath. After changing out of his work uniform, he grabbed his phone and flopped down on his bed, staring at the ceiling for a moment before typing out a message to Sakura Haruno. "Naruto. Yo, what's up?" No response. He waited for a few seconds, tapping his foot impatiently. "Naruto. Sakura. Hey, what are you up to? You there?" Still nothing. "Naruto. Come on, don't ignore me. You're probably just watching that dumb movie for the 100th time anyway." A minute passed, then two, and finally, the screen lit up with a reply. "Sakura. Naruto, I swear to God, if you interrupted me for some dumbass reason, I'm going to kill you. I'm in the middle of my series." Naruto grinned, fingers flying over the keys. "Naruto. Chill, you've been watching that brain-dead movie for like 6 years now. Meet up for pizza?" He could practically feel Sakura's sigh through the phone. It took her a minute to reply again, the little typing dots teasing him on the screen. "Sakura. Fine, okay, but you better not be wasting my time." Naruto chuckled, sitting up. "She'll never admit it, but she loves hanging out with me." Later that night, Naruto and Sakura were seated in a corner booth at one of their favorite fast food spots. Naruto was halfway through his second slice of pizza, while Sakura was poking her fork through a sad-looking bowl of salad. Sakura leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, looking at Naruto like he'd just announced he was going to fight a bear with his bare hands. "So let me get this straight," Sakura said, narrowing her eyes at him. "You want to participate in this race? The one this weekend?" Naruto nodded, a huge grin on his face. "Yeah, I'm totally gonna do it." Sakura rubbed her temples. "And, just to clarify, because I feel like I might be missing something here. You do realize that in order to drive in a car race, you need this thing called a car, right?" Naruto's grin faltered slightly, his confidence draining as fast as the grease on the pizza. "Well, yeah, that's kinda the problem." Sakura threw her hands up, groaning. "Naruto, you moron, how the hell do you plan on entering a race without a car?" "Look, I haven't figured that part out yet, okay? I dunno, gonna cross that bridge when I get to it." "Do you even have a license?" Sakura leaned forward, narrowing her eyes suspiciously. "Peefed, details. I'm working on it," Naruto said, waving her off with a nervous chuckle. Sakura's fork clattered against her plate as she sighed dramatically. "Naruto, no one else knows about this insane idea of yours, right?" "Nope," Naruto replied, shaking his head. "Not even Mom." Sakura stared at him. "Not even Kushina? She'd just say no, you know? Tell me it's too dangerous, or whatever. She's always on my case about that stuff." "That's because it is dangerous, you dumbass," Sakura retorted, tossing a piece of crust at him. "You've never driven in a real race in your life. You barely even drive, period." Naruto dodged it and crossed his arms. Yeah, whatever. But think about it, Sakura. If I win, I get 50 million ryo. 50 million. Do you know what I could do with that kind of cash?" Sakura leaned back in her seat, giving him a tired look. "Let me guess. Buy a sports car, blow it all on video games, and still manage to be broke in 2 months?" Naruto sighed dreamily, ignoring her. "I could travel the world. I could buy us a mansion. I'd finally pay you back for all the times you covered me. Or you could just be realistic for once in your life," Sakura shot back. "Racing isn't like those stupid video games you and Sasuke play. You have zero experience. You'd get yourself killed." Naruto scoffed, leaning back and crossing his arms. Man, everybody's always underestimating me. I could totally win. Sakura raised an eyebrow. There's a reason people underestimate you, Naruto. This is real life, and you're not even close to qualified for this kind of thing. You're you. Naruto opened his mouth to argue but paused, realizing she had a point. He stared at the greasy pizza in front of him, sulking. Sakura sighed, reaching for another slice. Look, just let it go. Maybe if you're desperate for money, you could ask your boss at Ichiraku to let you open a stall at the venue. You'd probably make a killing. Less chance of you crashing and dying too. Naruto blinked. He opened his mouth to snap back but paused. Wait, that's actually not the worst idea you've ever had. Of course it's not a bad idea, Sakura muttered, rolling her eyes. I always have the good ideas. Naruto leaned forward, smug. But I can't do that. Sakura frowned. Why not? He grinned. Because I've got a reputation to keep up. Sakura stared at him for a long moment before rolling her eyes so hard, Naruto was afraid they might pop out of her skull. Naruto, it's a little late for worrying about your reputation. As the waiter came by with the check, Sakura reached for her wallet, pulling out a few bills to cover her meal. Just as she was about to hand the money over, Naruto leaned across the table and whispered, hey, Sakura. Can you cover my bill too? I didn't bring any cash. Sakura froze. Slowly, she turned to look at him, eyes narrowing into slits. You didn't bring cash? She hissed, voice deadly quiet. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, you know, I'm not exactly rolling in it right now. Sakura closed her eyes, inhaling deeply as if trying to center herself. Naruto, I swear to God. Appreciate it, Sakura. Naruto grinned as she shoved a few more bills toward the waiter, muttering curses under her breath. You owe me so much money, Sakura growled, standing up and grabbing her jacket. You owe me enough to cover my rent for a damn year. Naruto beamed as if she'd just handed him a gift. Thanks, Sakura. You're the best, you know that? Sakura glared at him, shaking her head. No, I'm just an idiot for still being friends with you after all these years. Yeah, don't be so grumpy about it, Naruto said, standing up and throwing his arm around her shoulders. It's just pizza. I will pay you back, you'll see. Once I win that prize money. You're never gonna win, Sakura interrupted, her voice filled with exasperation. Naruto just grinned, tapping his nose. You'll see. As they walked out of the fast food joint, Sakura shook her head, already regretting whatever stupid venture Naruto was cooking up now that he'd eventually find a way to get her involved in. The next day, Naruto skipped work without a second thought and made his way over to Sasuke's workshop. He knew he was about to do something incredibly reckless, but his brain had already shut off the reasonable part. It was all about getting a car, getting to the race, and qualifying. As he walked into the workshop, he spotted Sasuke and his cousin, Shisui, leaning over the hood of some other customer's car, both of them deep in conversation about spark plugs and fuel injectors. Naruto plastered on his best casual grin and sauntered over. Hey, guys, what's up? Sasuke glanced up, wiping his hands on a rag. Naruto, you skipping work again? What do you want? Naruto quickly spun a lie, his mind racing. Yeah. So, I kinda forgot my wallet in Hiashi's car yesterday when I was, driving it. He mentally cursed himself for not thinking of something better. Sasuke raised an eyebrow, already suspicious. You forgot your wallet? Yeah, totally. I didn't realize till I had to pay for my dinner last night. You know how it is. Shisui gave him a skeptical look, but shrugged, handing him the keys. Well, be quick, Naruto. We've got work to do. Naruto nervously grabbed the keys and made his way over to Hiashi's pristine Chevelle, parked in the corner of the workshop. His heart was pounding in his chest, but he told himself it was fine. It was just one race. One race, and he'd return the car. No harm done. As he slid into the driver's seat, he muttered to himself, trying to psych himself up. Okay, Naruto, you've got this. Just a quick drive, win the race, bring the car back. Easy peasy. From outside, Sasuke called out, what's taking so long, dumbass? Find your wallet yet? No, it's, lodged somewhere, Naruto shouted back, trying to buy more time. He felt the pressure building. Sasuke grumbled, and Shisui raised an eyebrow. How did it get lodged? What's it made of? Naruto swallowed hard, his hand hovering over the ignition. He took a deep breath, locked the doors, and turned on the engine. Shisui blinked in confusion. Naruto? What the hell are you doing? Naruto rolled down the window and stuck his head out. Look, I just need to borrow the car for a few hours, okay? I'll bring it back, promise. Sasuke's eyes widened, and in a flash, he was running toward the car. Borrow the car? Are you fucking insane? Get out of the car, Naruto. I'm really sorry, man. Naruto yelled, gripping the steering wheel as Sasuke banged on the door, trying to pry it open. Open the damn door, Sasuke shouted, clawing at the locked handle, his eyes burning with fury. You're not seriously doing this. Naruto flinched, feeling the panic rise in his chest, but he forced himself to focus. I'll be back, okay? Don't worry, Naruto. Sasuke was practically growling at this point, banging on the window. If you drive off in Hiashi's car, you're fucking dead, man. Dead. Shisui stood back, arms crossed, looking more amused than angry. You know, Naruto, stealing a car isn't exactly the best way to solve your problems. I'm not stealing it, Naruto insisted, though even he wasn't sure how much he believed that. I'm just borrowing it for a few hours. With that, Naruto pressed down on the gas, and the car roared to life. Sasuke's eyes widened as Naruto peeled out of the garage, leaving tire marks and an incredibly pissed-off Sasuke in his wake. Naruto! Sasuke screamed after the car, but it was too late. Naruto was gone, speeding down the street toward the destination on the race poster tucked in his pocket. For a moment, Sasuke stood there in stunned silence, watching the cloud of dust settle in the street. Shisui walked up next to him, shaking his head. So, you want me to call the cops, or? Sasuke clenched his jaw, fists balled at his sides. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. No, don't bother. Shisui raised an eyebrow. You sure? Hiashi's not exactly gonna be thrilled when he finds out his car's missing. Sasuke sighed, running a hand through his hair. Let it go. We'll deal with that idiot when he comes back. He shot a look at the direction Naruto had gone. And when he does, he's fucking dead. Shisui chuckled, leaning against the workbench. I mean, points for creativity. Didn't think he had the balls to pull something this dumb. Sasuke just shook his head, muttering under his breath. He's gonna need more than balls when I'm done with him. Naruto pulled up to the venue, eyes wide as he took in the size of the crowd. Cars of all shapes and sizes filled the lot, people bustling around with energy, and the roar of engines from the track made his stomach do nervous flips. He parked Hiashi's Chevelle and turned off the engine, staring straight ahead as he tried to calm his racing heart. Okay, you got this, Naruto muttered to himself, gripping the steering wheel. Just one race, win the prize money, and life changes forever. You're Naruto freaking Uzumaki. You can do anything. He forced himself to repeat every motivational phrase he'd ever heard, even the cheesy ones from self-help books. No pain, no gain. Winners never quit. If you can dream it, you can do it. He climbed out of the car, glancing around again. The size of the crowd wasn't enormous, but it was definitely enough to make his palms sweat. No big deal, he whispered. It's not like everyone's staring at you. Naruto made his way to the registration tent, trying to act casual as he passed by groups of people. As he got in line, he started to size up the other potential racers. Most of them looked about his age, either really skilled or, more likely, just as desperate and reckless as him. Yeah, they're probably all just idiots too, he muttered under his breath, hoping that was true. When it was his turn at the desk, Naruto fumbled through the registration process. He handed over the papers, signed forms, and pretended he understood what the hell he was doing. His hands were a bit shaky as he glanced over at the other racers registering, most of them looking way more prepared than he felt. He smiled nervously at the woman behind the desk as she handed him his entry number and pointed him toward the workshop. Naruto made his way over, where some engineers took Hiashi's car and ran it on the dyno. He stood awkwardly off to the side, watching as they tinkered with the car and checked its specifications. The loud hum of the machine made him wince a little, but he kept trying to play it cool, even though his heart was still doing cartwheels in his chest. When the process was done, they handed him a booklet and told him he'd be in Group 2, Class B. Cool, Naruto mumbled, shoving the booklet into his pocket without even glancing at it. Sounds great. As he walked back toward the crowd, the roar of engines from the track caught his attention, and he found himself drawn toward the grandstands. He sat down to watch the first qualifying race, his eyes glued to the track. 8 cars lined up, split into 2 groups, 4 in front, 4 behind. The first group took off, and Naruto leaned forward in his seat, watching them zip around the corners. His focus locked onto a sleek, white Mitsubishi Lancer Evo. The car handled the turns with ease, weaving through the competition like the driver was on a Sunday drive. It was clear this guy was on another level. "Damn," Naruto muttered, eyes wide. "Hope I don't have to deal with anyone like that in my race." When the race ended, the announcer declared the driver of the white Lancer, something Nara, as the winner. Naruto watched as the driver got out. A young guy, probably around Naruto's age, sporting medicated glasses with straight black hair tied up in a high ponytail. He looked cocky as hell, strutting around like he owned the place. "Damn," Naruto mumbled, "hope I don't race against any tryhards like that." As the next race was announced, Naruto's heart jumped into his throat. It was time. Group 2 was up next, and he was part of Class B, whatever that meant. He took a deep breath and climbed back into the Chevelle, driving it toward the starting line. An instructor was waiting there to explain the details again, and Naruto half listened, nodding and pretending to understand. "Placed in Group B due to your car's specs. You'll be racing with others who are similarly competitive," the instructor said, reading off a clipboard. Right, Naruto replied, not really paying attention. His eyes were on the group of cars forming in front of him for Group A. The first 2 cars alone were enough to make Naruto nearly choke, a pair of Porsches, sleek and menacing. "Thank God," he whispered. "No chance in hell I'd survive that." As he looked at the cars lining up in Group B alongside him, he felt a little more confident. There was a purple, sad-looking Toyota, a black Audi, and an old Fox-body Mustang. None of them screamed, "Champion racer," at least not at first glance. "Alright, not bad," Naruto muttered, eyeing the Audi warily. He didn't know much about the make, but it looked like the most serious competition here. The rest? Well, he felt lucky. His biggest threat seemed to be that guy with the dad vibes in the Audi next to him, and Naruto was pretty sure he had that one covered. Just then, the engines of Group A roared to life, and the cars peeled off, taking to the track with the ferocity of lions. Naruto watched them disappear down the straightaway, and for a moment, doubt crept back in. "What the hell am I doing here?" he whispered, gripping the wheel. But then he remembered the cash prize. The life-changing money. The idea of never having to mooch off Sakura again. He straightened up in his seat, determination flooding back in. 10 seconds later, it was his turn. The engines of Group B started revving around him, and Naruto could feel the Chevelle's V8 rumble beneath him, like a beast waking up. He couldn't help exhale. "Yeah, I got this." He glanced at the guy across from him, Dad Vibes guy, who looked cool as a cucumber, and Naruto smiled a bit. "Yeah, I'm feeling sort of good about this." The timer ticked down, and adrenaline surged through his veins. His hands tightened on the wheel. His foot hovered over the gas pedal, ready to gun it. 3, 2, 1. The roar of engines filled the air as he launched the Chevrolet off the starting line, lurching back into his seat. Naruto's heart raced as fast as the car, knowing this was his shot. He just had to win. Naruto gripped the steering wheel tightly as he sped toward the first turn. His knuckles were white, the deep rumble of the Chevelle's engine vibrating through his bones. He could feel the beast of a car struggling to slow down in time, the weight of the Chevelle making it difficult to navigate the sharp corner. As he turned, the tires groaned in protest, and the Chevelle understeered, sliding out wide. "Damn it," Naruto cursed as he corrected the car's trajectory. He had fallen into third place behind the Audi and the Mustang. The Toyota was right behind him, edging closer, ready to pounce. He could almost hear the driver of that sad-looking purple machine cackling in his rearview mirror. Naruto floored it, hoping to create some distance before the next corner. "Come on, you piece of shit," he muttered to the Chevelle as it lumbered through the first corner, struggling to stay ahead. But as he barreled into it, the Toyota was right there, diving on the inside, trying to squeeze past. "Oh no, you don't," Naruto growled, jerking the wheel to cut off the Toyota's path, forcing it to back off. But he knew it was only a temporary solution. The Chevelle was terrible at handling tight corners, and every bend in the track felt like a war with physics. He glanced down at the crumpled map sitting on his lap. One more turn, then the straightaway. That's where he could make his move. The next corner came, and Naruto had to practically stand on the brakes, the Chevelle screeching in complaint as it slowed down dramatically. The Toyota, lighter and more agile, easily slipped past him. Great. Freaking wonderful, Naruto muttered as he fell into last place. But then he saw it, the straight. His heart pounded as his foot slammed down on the gas pedal. The Chevelle roared to life like a beast unleashed, the V8 growling like a thunderstorm. He shot forward, overtaking the Toyota in a matter of moments. As he zoomed past, he caught a glimpse of the Toyota driver's face, eyes wide, mouth set in a furious scowl. Naruto couldn't help but grin. Sorry, pal, but this isn't your race. His next target was the Fox Body Mustang. Ahead of him was the Fox Body Mustang, its boxy frame bouncing along the track. Another muscle car, at least in theory, Naruto thought, rolling his eyes at the pitiful imitation. This guy wasn't a concern. The Mustang's sloppy cornering and mediocre speed gave Naruto plenty of time to strategize. The engines roared as they passed the spectators, the crowd roaring even louder in response. Naruto could hear the announcer giving play-by-plays, but he wasn't focused on the noise. He was locked onto the Mustang in front of him, inching closer with each second. Up ahead was another turn. Naruto inhaled sharply, an idea forming in his mind. He was going to try something risky. Really risky. Naruto angled the nose of his car at the Mustang's quarter panel, pretending like he was about to dive inside. The driver of the Mustang panicked, seeing Naruto's aggressive move, and braked hard, veering away from what he thought was a potential collision. Naruto smirked. Sucker. But he didn't stop there. He nudged the Chevelle even closer, body-checking the Mustang through the turn. The metal frames of both cars almost kissed as they rounded the bend, Naruto forcing his way ahead. As soon as they pulled out of the turn, Naruto floored the gas, the Chevelle's V8 bellowing as it surged ahead. He grinned, watching in the rearview as the Mustang fell behind. And stay back, he muttered triumphantly, eyes flicking to his rearview mirror. The announcer's voice grew more excited, calling attention to the battle raging in Group B. Naruto could feel the crowd's energy from the stands. They were actually cheering for him now, and it sent a rush of determination through his veins. Now, it was just him and the Audi. The final opponent. The driver, a middle-aged man with a face that screamed, "I'm late for soccer practice," was calm behind the wheel. The Audi, sleek and fast, moved like a shadow across the track. It was obvious the guy knew how to handle it. Naruto narrowed his eyes, foot still glued to the gas pedal. His grip on the steering wheel tightened as the Chevelle sped down the straight, the Audi ahead maintaining a frustrating gap. But Naruto was determined. "I'm coming for you," he muttered, teeth clenched in concentration. They blasted past the start-finish line, completing the first lap. Naruto was now in second place, with the Toyota somehow managing to slip into third. He could hear the roar of Group A's leaders coming up behind them, with a bright purple Porsche looming behind the Toyota in his rearview. "Yeah, not my problem," he muttered. His focus was on the Audi. Naruto checked his dashboard, 150 km per hour and climbing. Up ahead, the Audi looked like it was going way too fast into the next corner. "Brake too hard, old man. I dare you." Naruto's heart pounded, adrenaline pumping through his veins. His prayers were answered as he saw the Audi brake lights shine bright as it approached the next turn. He was close enough to see the back of the car now, but it was still too far to make a clean pass. He knew if he slowed down like the Audi was, he'd lose any chance to catch up. The speedometer on the Chevelle's dashboard read 150 km per hour and climbing. Naruto swallowed hard. This was it. The moment he could either make his move or fail and prove everyone right. Then a crazy idea hit him. So he decided to do what any reasonable, sane driver would do. He didn't slow down. His foot stayed planted on the gas. Either he was about to make the ballsiest move of the race, or he'd end up in a fireball on the side of the track. "Come on, baby, hold together," he whispered to the Chevelle, praying the old beast wouldn't betray him at this critical moment. The Audi braked hard, taking the corner like a disciplined machine. Naruto, though, was gambling. "If I pull this off," he muttered under his breath, heart hammering in his chest. His hands tightened on the wheel as the turn approached, seconds away from what could be total disaster. "Let's go." he shouted, adrenaline pushing him beyond the fear. Naruto whipped the wheel hard to the left, swerving his car to the outside of the Audi. The crowd erupted in a mix of awe and horror, their voices barely audible over the deafening howl of his tires as they protested the abuse he was putting them through. The turn was coming fast, and every instinct told Naruto to ease up. But he didn't. Not today, bastard. His eyes darted to the barrier looming dangerously close. He threw the wheel in the opposite direction, trying to pull the Chevelle back in line. But the car wasn't happy about it. The rear tires lost traction, sending the heavy muscle car into a savage oversteer. The back end of the car slid out, screaming against the track. Naruto cursed under his breath, his knuckles white as he fought the wheel. For a moment, Naruto was sure hell itself had just opened up in the car's interior. It was as if hell itself had opened up and a horde of banshees were screaming next to him. The wails from the Chevelle's tires ricocheted inside the car, a horrific cacophony that rattled his very bones. It wasn't the polished sound you'd hear in the movies, no. This was raw, primal. A sound only a 1.7-ton monster of a car struggling against physics at 100 km per hour could make. The Chevelle teetered on the edge of chaos. For a moment, Naruto thought he was about to become nothing more than a charred smear plastered against the track barrier. The crowd gasped in collective terror. Even the announcer, ever energetic, seemed to falter as he prepared for the inevitable disaster. But then, somehow, the Chevelle held on. It hugged the curve, defying gravity and common sense. Naruto gritted his teeth, his arms aching from the sheer force of keeping the wheel steady. The car fishtailed violently, its rear tires struggling to find grip. His foot tapped the gas in perfect intervals, trying to balance between regaining control and keeping his speed up. The Chevelle was still alive, and so was he. And in that moment, he realized something incredible. He had passed the Audi. Ha! He barked out a laugh, more from relief than anything else. He pulled the Chevelle back in front of the sleek black sedan, cutting it off from making any sort of comeback. He didn't care if it was a dirty move. This was his race now, and he wasn't going to let some middle-aged dude in a fancy sedan take it from him. The crowd's reaction was a roaring wave of noise, and Naruto soaked it in. They were with him. His hands gripped the wheel tighter as the Chevelle thundered down the track. The engine bellowed its defiance, pushing the speedometer higher. 100 km per hour, 110, 120. The needle climbed steadily, and Naruto felt the thrill of the race pulsing through his veins. The announcer mentioned something about Gruppa completing their race, but Naruto didn't care. He was laser-focused on maintaining his lead. Behind him, the Audi was still lurking, trying to reclaim its spot. Naruto could see it in his rearview mirror, the headlights gleaming ominously. But he didn't let that rattle him. He had fought too hard to be taken down now. The finish line was up ahead, growing larger by the second. Naruto's breath quickened as he neared it, his hands glued to the steering wheel. His eyes flicked between the track and the rearview mirror. The Audi was still there, pushing hard. But Naruto wasn't going to let it win. No way in hell. The checkered line came closer, and in that moment, the entire world seemed to slow down. The roar of the crowd, the blaring of the announcer, the rumble of engines, everything faded. It was just him and the finish line. Naruto's foot pressed the gas pedal to the floor, urging every last ounce of power from the Chevelle's roaring V8 engine. And then, with a final burst of speed, he crossed the line. The finish lights blinked as Naruto sped past, signaling the end of Group B's race. The roar of the crowd was thunderous. Naruto slowly eased up on the accelerator, his hands trembling slightly as the car coasted to a stop. His heart was still pounding, adrenaline surging through his body. His breath came out in short, ragged bursts as he tried to wrap his head around what had just happened. He won. A long, relieved sigh escaped his lips as he rested his head back against the seat, a wide grin spreading across his face. He'd qualified for the tournament. Hiashi's precious Chevelle was still in one piece, and he wasn't hobbling back home in bandages. Naruto glanced up at the crowd, watching them cheer and holler as the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. He chuckled to himself, still riding the high of victory. Hell yeah, he muttered, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. He was going to the tournament. Naruto pulled the Chevelle into Sasuke's workshop with a heavy sigh, the high of victory starting to fade as he considered what was about to happen. He parked the car and stared at the dashboard for a second, trying to prepare himself for the storm that was sure to come. Sasuke was not going to be thrilled about this little joyride, not to mention Shisui was probably waiting with his usual smirk, ready to watch the fireworks. As soon as he stepped out of the car, he didn't have to wait long for the chaos to begin. "What the hell, Naruto?" Sasuke's voice came thundering from across the garage. He stormed toward Naruto, eyes wide, looking like he was about to spontaneously combust from sheer rage. Behind him, Shisui followed at a slower pace, arms crossed and shaking his head in disbelief. Naruto scratched the back of his head, already feeling the heat. Yeah, so, about that. I might have, borrowed the Chevelle for, a little race." "A little race?" Sasuke nearly shrieked. "You stole the car, you moron. That's Hiashi's car. What the hell were you thinking? I didn't damage it." Naruto blurted out quickly, raising his hands in defense. "Look, it's still in one piece, isn't it? I didn't crash or anything." Shisui snorted, a half-smile tugging at his lips. "You didn't crash, but you sure as hell didn't take care of it." Sasuke's eyes narrowed as he stepped closer to the Chevelle, inspecting it like it was a wounded animal. His gaze traveled over the body, his fingers tracing the outline of the tires. And then, his face twisted in pure horror. "Oh my god, you wore out the tires." Naruto blinked. What? The tires, Naruto?" Sasuke yelled, gesturing wildly. "Do you have any idea how much these cost? These aren't just regular tires. You wore them down in one race." Naruto winced, realizing this was a detail he might have overlooked. Okay, I didn't think about the tires. I'm sorry. I'll pay you back, for the gas. I didn't think the tires would be that big of a deal." Sasuke looked like he was going to explode, his hands trembling as he struggled to keep it together. "That big of a deal? I'm going to kill you, Naruto. You're dead. You don't even know how deep a grave you're digging right now." Shisui stepped in, chuckling. "You're so screwed. Hiashi's going to flip when he finds out. You know he's got eyes everywhere, right?" Nah, he won't find out," Naruto said quickly, waving him off. "The race wasn't even televised. As long as we clean the car, we're good. Right? Sasuke shot him a deadly glare, pointing at the tires like they were the most grievous sin ever committed. "The tires, Naruto. What about the freaking tires?" Naruto gulped, taking a step back, his hands up in surrender. "Okay, yeah, I'll figure something out. I'll get new tires. I promise, just don't kill me." Sasuke clenched his fists, his jaw twitching. "I should seriously murder you. Right here, right now." Naruto edged away, putting some distance between them. "But it wasn't for nothing. I won the race. First place. Qualified for the next round. So, there's that." Sasuke's eye twitched. "And what car are you planning to use next? Because it's definitely not going to be this one, unless you've got a death wish." Naruto scratched his head, trying not to look as nervous as he felt. "Well, I was kinda hoping you guys could, help me out." Shisui laughed, patting Sasuke on the back. "I think you've made things worse, buddy. Read the room." Sasuke turned to Naruto, his expression flat, almost dead inside. "Get out. Get the hell out." Naruto didn't need to be told twice. "Right, okay, I'm leaving. We'll sort this out later." He gave a hasty wave and quickly bolted out of the garage before Sasuke could change his mind and actually follow through on his threats. As he walked down the street, his mind raced. He needed a car, and fast. Sasuke was clearly out of the question, and he had no idea how he was going to afford new tires, let alone an entire vehicle. Desperate, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he landed on Sakura's name. With a sigh, he shot her a text. "Hey, are you there?" Surprisingly, Sakura didn't take too long to reply. "Sakura. What's up?" Naruto wasted no time beating around the bush. "Naruto. I need a car. Fast." Her response came almost immediately, but it wasn't quite what he was expecting. "Sakura. To get a car, you have several options depending on your budget, preferences, and financial situation. Here's a general guide. 1. Buy a new car. Research models. Consider what type of car fits your needs, sedan, SUV, truck, etc. You can use websites like. Naruto stared at the wall of text on his screen, blinking in disbelief. Was she seriously doing this right now? He typed furiously. "Sakura, is this fucking Chat GPT?" Sakura. What did you expect me to say, dumbass? You think I can just poof a car into existence for you? Naruto groaned. I'm serious, Sakura. Help me out here. I already won the qualification race. I just need a car to get to the next stage. There was a long pause. He imagined Sakura sitting there, pinching the bridge of her nose like she always did when he came to her with one of his ridiculous problems. Sakura. You actually won? Naruto grinned at his phone. Yeah, I'm still alive. Just needed to secure a spot before it was too late. Finally, a voice note popped up. He hesitated before playing it, holding the phone to his ear. Okay, so, I'm kinda impressed you actually won and didn't, like, die or something. But seriously, you didn't think any of this through, did you? You just, signed yourself up and hoped for the best? Naruto grinned sheepishly, even though she couldn't see him. I had to act fast. You know how these things are. If I didn't jump in, someone else would have taken the spot. Another pause. This one longer. His phone buzzed again with a new message. Sakura. You're going to owe me your firstborn child if I help you out with this. Naruto nearly jumped for joy, his fingers flying across the screen. Deal. I'll name it after you. I mean it, idiot. Sakura sent back, but there was a hint of humor in her reply. I'll call you soon. We need to meet up. Don't do anything stupid until then. Naruto grinned, feeling a wave of relief. You're the best. Love you. Don't push it. As he kept walking toward home, Naruto felt a renewed sense of hope. This could still work out for him. He just had to see what Sakura could pull off. With a final glance at his phone, he shoved it in his pocket and smiled to himself. Maybe things were starting to look up. The next day, Sasuke and Shisui drove up to Hiyoshi's mansion with the Chevelle, both of them far more nervous than they wanted to admit. Sasuke kept his eyes glued to the road, while Shisui chewed on his thumbnail, glancing at the side mirror every 5 seconds. You think he knows? Shisui muttered, breaking the tense silence. He better not, Sasuke grumbled. We cleaned it. It's fine. We're fine. But as soon as they pulled into the driveway and saw Hiyoshi waiting for them, arms crossed and an unreadable look on his face, Sasuke wasn't feeling so sure anymore. Here we go, Shisui muttered, slouching deeper into his seat. Sasuke threw him a glare. Sit up, man. We have to look like we know what we're doing. They both got out of the car and walked up to Hiyoshi, who was already looking the Chevelle up and down like a hawk inspecting prey. Good afternoon, Mr. Hyuga, Sasuke greeted, trying to sound casual. Shisui gave a nervous wave beside him. Hiyoshi nodded slowly, his sharp eyes still focused on the car. Afternoon. I appreciate you delivering the car on time. I trust everything went smoothly? Sasuke felt his palms sweat. Yeah, no problems at all, Hiyoshi hummed, his gaze still lingering on the vehicle. Then, without missing a beat, he turned to Sasuke, his expression carefully neutral. So, no joyrides? Sasuke nearly choked on his own spit but kept his face straight. Of course not. Just took care of it like we promised. Hiyoshi smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. It was the kind of smile that said I know something you don't want me to know. Interesting, because I happened to be at the qualification race yesterday. Both Sasuke and Shisui froze. Their brains went into full panic mode. He was there? Hiyoshi pulled out his phone and tapped on the screen, bringing up a video. And I believe I saw this vehicle on the track. Sasuke's mouth went dry as Hiyoshi hit play. There it was, clear as day, the Chevelle roaring down the street in all its glory during the race. Hiyoshi's eyebrow twitched upwards as he glanced at them. Care to explain? Shisui stuttered. Well, you see. Hiyoshi tilted his head slightly, his voice calm but firm. Who was driving my car? The silence between Sasuke and Shisui was deafening. They exchanged a quick, panicked glance. Shisui was looking at him like, well? Say something. Sasuke exhaled sharply, knowing there was no way out. He had to take one for the team. It was me. I drove it. Shisui's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Sasuke ignored him. Hiyoshi narrowed his eyes, scanning Sasuke up and down. He took a moment to consider this before speaking again, his tone surprisingly intrigued. You drove it? Sasuke nodded, preparing for the worst. Yeah, I'm sorry for not asking for permission. To be honest, Hiyoshi interrupted, his gaze sharpening, I was impressed. The driver's skill caught my attention. Sasuke blinked. Huh? Hiyoshi took a step forward, his expression softening just a little. Yes, the performance was remarkable. In fact, I've been following this tournament since its inception. Motorsports are a personal interest of mine. Shisui was trying hard not to laugh at the sudden 180 in the conversation, and Sasuke was too stunned to speak. So, Hiyashi continued, his tone shifting into something almost businesslike. I was wondering how you would feel about continuing the tournament, in my name. Sasuke blinked again. I'm sorry, what? Hiyashi's smile grew. I'd like to sponsor you for the next stages. You would represent my company. What do you say? Sasuke stared at him, completely floored. Was this real? Was Hiyashi Hyuga asking him to race for him? Shisui, finally recovering from his shock, piped up. Wait, are you serious? You want Sasuke to be your driver? Hiyashi nodded. Yes, I'd like to move forward with this. What do you think, Uchiha Sasuke? Sasuke, still stunned, managed to force out a reply. Yeah, sure. I mean, yes, absolutely. Excellent. Hiyashi nodded. We'll discuss the details later. In the meantime, keep the car in good condition. He turned back to his house, leaving Sasuke and Shisui standing there like two statues. As soon as Hiyashi disappeared inside, Shisui turned to Sasuke, eyes wide with disbelief. Did that just happen? Sasuke exhaled, still processing everything. Yeah, it did. Shisui whistled low. Man, you just got the golden ticket. He's sponsoring you. You're set. Sasuke ran a hand through his hair, the weight of the situation finally hitting him. Yeah, but now I gotta tell Naruto. Shisui snorted. Good luck with that. He's gonna lose his mind when he finds out. Sasuke groaned. I don't have a choice. He's the one who won the race. It wouldn't be right if I just took the credit. Shisui clapped a hand on Sasuke's shoulder, grinning. Look at you, trying to be a decent human being for once. Sasuke scowled. Shut up, I'm gonna tell him later. He deserves to know. Shisui chuckled as they got into the car. Well, at least now Naruto's crazy plan doesn't seem so far off, huh? Sasuke sighed, staring at the road ahead. Yeah, maybe this is actually gonna work. Later that day, Naruto sat on his couch, drumming his fingers on the armrest, staring at his phone. He was sure Sasuke was going to call any second with bad news. There was no way that entire mess with Hiyashi had gone smoothly. This is it, Naruto thought grimly. I'm about to be banned from racing before I even get started. His phone buzzed, and he nearly jumped out of his skin. The screen flashed Sasuke's name. Here we go. He swiped the call open. Sasuke? Hey, you're not gonna believe this. Sasuke's voice came through, oddly upbeat. Please tell me you didn't get us both killed. Actually, Hiyashi wants to sponsor you for the tournament. Naruto blinked. What? Yeah, long story short, he was impressed with the car during the qualifying race. Now he wants me, you technically, to represent his company. Naruto sat there, stunned into silence for a solid 5 seconds. Then, his face lit up. Holy shit, Sasuke. We did it. We freaking did it. Sasuke's voice sounded like he was grinning on the other end. Yeah, I'm as surprised as you are. I gotta tell someone. Dude, this is insane. Go celebrate. I'll fill you in later. Naruto hung up, a huge grin on his face. He practically jumped off the couch, ready to run laps around his house, but instead, he grabbed his jacket and headed out the door. He had to tell someone, and who better than Sakura? Later that afternoon, Naruto met Sakura at their usual fast food joint. They sat at a table by the window, Sakura sipping on a soda while Naruto tried not to vibrate out of his seat. So, I've been talking to a friend about that car situation, Sakura began, scrolling through her phone. I think I found someone who could help, my friend said. Naruto cut her off, unable to hold it in any longer. Forget that. Hiyashi's sponsoring me for the tournament. Sakura blinked, her cup halfway to her mouth. Wait, what? Yeah, Naruto grinned, bouncing in his seat. Hiyashi Hyuga, dude, Sasuke told me just now. He wants me to keep racing in his name. Sakura stared at him like he'd grown a second head. You're kidding. Hiyashi Hyuga? That Hiyashi? Yeah, that Hiyashi. He's apparently a huge motorsports fan or something. I don't know, but he liked how I drove his car at the qualifier. Sakura set her cup down and rubbed her temples. Are you serious? Naruto, I went through hell to get a car deal for you. Naruto blinked, confused. Wait, what do you mean? I mean I practically sold my damn kidney to get this car from Hinata. Naruto froze. Wait, what? Sakura sighed dramatically. Yeah, I was going to borrow it for a weekend camping trip. It took forever to convince her. And now you don't even need it. Naruto put his head in his hands, groaning. Why the hell would you talk to Hinata? Sakura looked genuinely baffled. She's literally the only person I knew who could just spare a car. And we're not even that close. It was awkward as hell. You went to Hinata Hyuga? Naruto repeated, eyes wide. Daughter of Hiyashi Hyuga? The guy who until a few hours ago was going to make me disappear for stealing his car. Sakura scowled. How the hell was I supposed to know you took his car? You didn't exactly fill me in on that part. Naruto threw his hands up in exasperation. That's not even the biggest problem. Why would you go to Hinata in the first place? You know how weird things are between us. Sakura groaned, leaning back in her seat. Naruto, you went to the movies with her once. In middle school. Can you stop acting like she's your ex-wife or something? Naruto's face turned red. That's not the point. I didn't want to, rekindle any old flames. God, you're unbelievable, Sakura said, exasperated. She didn't even know it was you using the car. And honestly, Hinata's way out of your league. Don't gas yourself up because you fumbled her 7 years ago. Naruto waved her off, determined to steer the conversation back. Whatever. The point is, Hiyashi's sponsoring me now. I'm gonna race in the next stage of the tournament, and that's all that matters. Sakura was silent for a moment, and then, to Naruto's surprise, she smiled softly. Well, I'm actually really happy for you, Naruto. You've been working your ass off for this. Now we just have to figure out how to let Hinata know about the whole, not needing her car, thing. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Yeah, I'll try to sweet-talk Hiyashi into letting me use another car, just in case. But hold on to Hinata as a plan B. You never know. Sakura grinned, leaning forward. Oh, don't worry. I've still got her on standby. I did you a huge favor, Naruto chuckled, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, you did. You're a real lifesaver, Sakura. I know. She flashed him a playful smirk. And I'm still coming for your firstborn child since I technically found you a car. A nice car, mind you. Hinata's rich, Naruto laughed, shaking his head. Deal. Just let me win the damn tournament first. They shared a light-hearted moment, both of them grinning across the table, basking in the ridiculousness of the situation. Despite the chaos, things were finally looking up. 3 days later, Naruto's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, interrupting his morning ritual of scarfing down ramen. He checked the screen, nearly choking on his noodles when he saw the caller ID. Hiyashi Hyuga. Shit, he muttered, scrambling to answer. He cleared his throat and tried to sound casual. Hey, Hiyashi-san. Good morning, Naruto, came Hiyashi's calm but authoritative voice. I have some news regarding your sponsorship. Naruto quickly swallowed his ramen, trying to keep the excitement out of his voice. Oh, yeah? What's the deal? Hiyashi paused for a moment, as if collecting his thoughts. After reviewing your performance and the interesting circumstances under which this partnership began, I've decided to move forward with sponsoring you. Naruto felt a grin spread across his face. Seriously? That's amazing. Thank you, Hiyashi-san. I promise I won't let you down. We shall see, Hiyashi replied, his tone measured. I will also be assembling a team to support you during the tournament. Naruto blinked, the grin still plastered on his face. Wait, a team? Yes, I've already started gathering individuals who are experienced in managing racers and vehicles. It's important that you're properly prepared for the challenges ahead. Naruto scratched the back of his head, thinking. He appreciated the help, but he couldn't imagine working with a bunch of strangers. That's great and all, but I kinda have an idea. There was a beat of silence on the other end. Go on. Well, it's just, I think I'd work better with people I already know, Naruto explained. Like a crew I'm comfortable with. People I trust. Hiyashi didn't respond immediately. Naruto could almost hear the gears turning in the man's head. Naruto, sensing hesitation, jumped in before Hiyashi could shut it down. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know you've got your own team and they're probably amazing, but if I'm gonna win, and I will win, I need to be with people who get me. It's a chemistry thing. Chemistry, Hiyashi repeated, his tone unreadable. Yeah, Naruto said, nodding even though Hiyashi couldn't see him. Like, when you've worked with someone long enough, you just click. That's what I need to be at my best. Another pause. Naruto could feel his heart thumping in his chest as he waited for Hiyoshi's response. Finally, Hiyoshi spoke. "You're certain that you can assemble a team capable of supporting you through the tournament?" Naruto sat up straight, seizing his chance. "Absolutely. I know just the right people. Trust me, Hiyoshi-san, I wouldn't ask if I wasn't sure." Hiyoshi sighed lightly, though it wasn't an annoyed sigh. It was more of a, "this kid might actually have a point," kind of sigh. "Very well," Hiyoshi said at last. "I will allow you to put together your own team. However, I expect results, Naruto. I am not investing in this venture lightly." Naruto grinned ear to ear. "You won't regret it, I promise I'll deliver. And about the car," Hiyoshi added. "I trust you'll be selecting something suitable for the next stage?" Naruto hesitated. He knew what Hiyoshi meant. Fancy, sleek, new, cars that screamed, money and prestige. "But, well, actually, I'd really like to stick with the Chevelle," Naruto said. There was another long pause. "The Chevelle," Hiyoshi repeated, this time with a distinct note of confusion. "Yeah," Naruto said, his enthusiasm unshaken. "I mean, I really like that car. It's got character, you know? You prefer that car?" Hiyoshi asked, sounding genuinely baffled. "Yep," Naruto said, nodding vigorously again. "It's got this old-school charm. Plus, it kinda feels like it's already lucky for me, considering how I qualified." "I see." Hiyoshi's voice trailed off as if he were trying to process the absurdity of Naruto's preference. "Very well. The Chevelle it is." Naruto pumped his fist in the air. "Yes, thanks, Hiyoshi-san, you're the best. I'll make sure that car wins the next stage." "I look forward to seeing that," Hiyoshi said dryly. "I will contact you soon regarding any further preparations. Until then, focus on assembling your team." "You got it, I'll get right on that," Naruto said, his excitement overflowing. "Goodbye, Naruto," Hiyoshi said, and the call ended with a click. Naruto stared at his phone for a moment, still grinning like an idiot. He'd done it. He actually convinced Hiyoshi Hyuga to sponsor him, let him drive the Chevelle, and even got permission to form his own team. "This is gonna be awesome," Naruto muttered to himself, already thinking about who he'd recruit for his crew. He stood up, his mind racing with possibilities. The tournament was fast approaching, but with Hiyoshi's backing and his own team, Naruto felt more confident than ever. It was time to show everyone what he, and his car, could do. The Uchiha dining room was warm and filled with the smell of Makoto's home cooking. At the head of the table sat Fugaku, stern but relaxed for the evening. Makoto was seated next to him, smiling with pride. Sasuke quietly poked at his food, his mood darkening by the second. Sitting directly across from him, Itachi had just arrived for dinner after a long week of work and already had everyone hanging onto his every word. And then, right as the judge was about to issue the verdict, Itachi paused for dramatic effect. The defense attorney fumbled with the evidence files, knocking everything over. I kept a straight face, but inside, I almost felt bad for the guy. He chuckled, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Fugaku and Makoto laughed heartily. "That's my boy," Fugaku said, eyes glinting with approval. "You've got such composure, Itachi." Sasuke's grip tightened around his chopsticks. He glanced between his parents, who hadn't stopped smiling since Itachi started talking. For the entire dinner, it had been all about Itachi. The big-shot lawyer with perfect grades, a perfect job, and, apparently, a perfect life. Speaking of amazing, Makoto added, "Itachi, how's Izumi doing? I heard she got promoted too." "Oh, she did," Itachi replied smoothly, stealing a quick glance at Sasuke's frustrated face. "She's been really busy, but we make it work." Makoto beamed. "Well, it's a good thing she's patient. You must be such a handful, with how much work you do." Sasuke, feeling invisible, finally spoke up. "Yeah, you must be." "Exactly, mother," Itachi interrupted effortlessly, talking over Sasuke without even acknowledging him. "I try not to let my work get in the way, but sometimes, it's unavoidable." Sasuke clenched his jaw, stabbing his rice aggressively. The tension bubbled up inside him, and he shot a quick glance at his brother. Itachi smirked ever so slightly, clearly aware of Sasuke's frustration. He was playing into it, again. Itachi," Sasuke tried again, forcing himself into the conversation, "I wanted to say that." "Sasuke," Makoto interrupted this time, eyes narrowing. "Don't talk with your mouth full. It's rude." Sasuke froze mid-chew, then quickly swallowed, embarrassed. His face burned as the whole table turned to him. Before he could recover, Itachi, of course, swooped in. "I'm sorry on Sasuke's behalf, Mother," Itachi said smoothly, a hand raised in mock apology. "I'm sure he was just very excited to share something with us." Fugaku turned to Sasuke, his face softening. "All right, Sasuke, let's hear what you have to say." Sasuke opened his mouth, but his mind went blank. Every thought he had prepared melted away under the weight of their expectant gazes. He stammered, I was just." The silence stretched painfully as Sasuke failed to form a coherent sentence. His parents waited, eyes dimming with disappointment. "Well, that was enlightening," Itachi said with a light chuckle, breaking the tension. "We'll have to remember that gem of wisdom, Sasuke." He shot Sasuke a mischievous look before turning to their parents, continuing, "Sometimes, less is more, right?" Fugaku chuckled, and Mikoto followed, a soft giggle escaping her lips. The sound of their laughter rang in Sasuke's ears, filling him with shame. He slumped further into his seat, glaring daggers at his brother. "You know, Itachi," Fugaku said, eyes glowing with pride, "I still can't believe you're my son sometimes. I'm thankful every day, and it's a good thing he is," Mikoto chimed in with a smile, "because otherwise, I'd be jealous of Izumi." The table erupted into another round of laughter, except for Sasuke, who was quietly fuming. "Even now, I think I might be a little jealous of her," Mikoto added mid-laugh, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Sasuke couldn't take it anymore. He muttered under his breath, "It'd be great if you two got off Itachi's meat every once in a while." The laughter stopped instantly. Fugaku blinked, his face darkening with shock. Mikoto gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Sasuke." Fugaku's voice was low and scolding. "What did you just say? That's vulgar and completely inappropriate for the dinner table." Sasuke was stunned. He looked between them, baffled. "Wait, you literally just joked about being jealous of Itachi's girlfriend. How is that?" "Sasuke," Itachi interrupted once again, this time with a calm, almost pitying tone. "I'm sorry for my brother's behavior. He's probably just frustrated." Fugaku nodded approvingly at Itachi's cool demeanor. He placed a hand on his elder son's shoulder. "You're so level-headed, Itachi. Sometimes I think you're like the second son I never had." "I'm quite literally right here," Sasuke grumbled, but Mikoto's glare shut him up. Giving up, Sasuke slumped back into his seat with a sigh. "I'm full," he muttered, pushing back his chair and standing up abruptly. "I'm going to my room." Before Mikoto could say anything, Sasuke's elbow bumped his glass of water, sending it toppling over onto the table. The water spread across the surface, soaking the tablecloth. "Sasuke." Mikoto groaned, glaring at the mess. "It's fine, Mother," Itachi said quickly, rising from his seat with a napkin. "I'll clean it up for him." Fugaku smiled warmly at his eldest. "You're such a responsible brother, Itachi." Sasuke shot one final glare at the entire scene. He grumbled under his breath and stormed off to his room, feeling more like a shadow in his own house than ever before. Sasuke wiped the sweat from his brow as he leaned over the SUV's engine, deep in thought. The garage was filled with the clanking of tools and the occasional grunt from Shisui, who was lying underneath the vehicle, tightening a few bolts. "You good down there?" Sasuke asked, his voice flat. Shisui's voice echoed from beneath the car. "I'm great. Living the dream, my man. You should join me. The view's fantastic." Sasuke rolled his eyes and turned back to the engine. "I'll pass." Just as Sasuke was about to make some final adjustments, the door to the garage swung open with a loud creak, and in strolled Naruto, grinning from ear to ear. "Yo, Sasuke." "Shisui." Naruto called out cheerfully. Sasuke sighed, not even bothering to look up. "What do you want, Naruto?" Naruto leaned against the side of the SUV, still smiling. "I'm here to make you an offer you can't refuse." Sasuke stopped mid-adjustment, turning his head slightly toward Naruto. "An offer, huh?" He sighed deeply. "Is this about the tires you ruined when you stole Hieshi's car for that race?" Naruto scratched the back of his head, chuckling nervously. "Yeah, about that. I know I owe you big time for those. But listen, this proposal will more than cover the cost of the tires. In fact, you might even thank me later." Shisui's voice came from underneath the car again. "You should hear him out, Sasuke. It might be worth your while." Sasuke grunted, wiping his hands on a rag. Fine, let's hear it then. Naruto perked up, practically bouncing on his heels. So, for the next stage of the tournament, we're going to need a team. Like, a real team. 4 members minimum. Why 4? Sasuke asked, raising an eyebrow. Well, some of the races are team races. 2 cars from the same team have to work together on the track, Naruto explained. Sasuke crossed his arms, already losing interest. So, what? You came to ask me to drive? Because that's not happening. Naruto quickly shook his head. No, it's not that. You didn't qualify, remember? You wouldn't even be allowed to drive. I'll find another driver. Sasuke sighed in relief. Good, because I wasn't about to join your little tournament. Naruto took a deep breath, leaning in slightly. Actually, I came here because I want you to be my chief engineer. For a moment, Sasuke stared at him, completely speechless. Then, he scoffed, turning back to the engine. No way. I'm serious. Naruto insisted. You're the best mechanic I know. Still no. Naruto crossed his arms, trying to look serious. Come on, think about the money. When we win, the cash prize will more than make up for those tires. From beneath the car, Shisui chimed in. 50 million, Sasuke. That's a lot of cash. Sasuke rolled his eyes. There's no way you're going to win, Naruto. Naruto leaned in even closer, lowering his voice dramatically. Here's the best part. We're working under Hieshi's sponsorship. That means we're getting paid either way, and we could even score more sponsorships as we go. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Sponsorships, huh? And Naruto grinned mischievously. Sakura is going to be on the team. Sasuke's spanner slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. He stuttered her name. Sakura? Naruto nodded eagerly. Yup, she's going to be the team lead. Sasuke's eyes widened, his mind racing. Sakura, team lead? Naruto leaned even closer, his voice almost a whisper. Which means she'll be spending a lot of time organizing the team, and supervising the tune-ups after every race. Sasuke swallowed hard. The tune-ups? Yeah, Naruto grinned, which you, as the chief engineer, would be in charge of. Alone. In the workshop. All night. Sasuke's imagination went wild for a moment. He could see it now. Sakura watching him work. Her admiration growing as he expertly tuned the cars, her eyes sparkling with appreciation. But then reality came crashing back, and Sasuke shook his head vigorously. No, I can't. Shisui slid out from under the car, wiping his hands. Why not? Sounds like a great gig to me. Sasuke's face was serious as he glanced at Shisui. I just can't, okay? Naruto looked genuinely confused. But why? It's the perfect opportunity. Sasuke shifted uncomfortably, looking away. I'm sorry, Naruto. You'll have to find someone else. Naruto groaned, rubbing the back of his head. Man, I thought this would be an easy sell. He glanced at Shisui. What about you? You interested? Shisui shrugged. I mean, I'm no Sasuke, but I could give it a shot. Naruto grumbled. Yeah, I'll think about it. But still, I'd rather have Sasuke. He's the best. Sasuke didn't look up, his hands tightening around the wrench he was holding. I'm sorry, Naruto. I just can't do it. Naruto sighed, defeated. Alright, fine, but if you change your mind, you know where to find me. He gave Sasuke one last look before heading out the door. As the garage door swung shut behind Naruto, Sasuke let out a long breath. Shisui looked over at him, wiping his greasy hands on a rag. Why'd you say no? I thought you'd be all over that, especially with that girl Sakura involved, Shisui teased. Sasuke didn't answer, staring down at the engine. Deep down, he knew why he had said no. It wasn't that he didn't want to work on Naruto's team. It wasn't even about the money or Sakura. It was because, despite all his skill, he wasn't sure he was up to the task. And the last thing he wanted was to fail in front of the people he cared about. Let's just finish the job, Sasuke muttered, his voice quieter than usual. Shisui gave him a knowing look but didn't push any further. The garage fell into silence again, but Sasuke's thoughts were anything but quiet. Naruto walked into the sleek, glass entrance of Hieshi's company building, his mind going over everything he had to report. As he made his way through the lobby and toward the elevators, he mentally counted the members of his team. So far, the only person he had managed to recruit was Sakura. Not bad, he muttered to himself, thinking back to how it had taken him a solid day of pestering her before she finally gave in. But surprisingly, she had agreed to join as the team lead. He still couldn't get over it. Sakura said something about looking out for him, and I get 40%, but Naruto had tuned most of that out. All he heard was that she was in. He chuckled under his breath. A part of her had to believe he could actually win. That thought kept him optimistic as he stepped into the meeting room. The door opened and there was Hiyashi, as expected, but seated next to him was a blonde girl, around Naruto's age. Naruto blinked in surprise, glancing at her. She didn't notice him, too engrossed in whatever was on her phone. "Take a seat, Naruto," Hiyashi said, gesturing toward the chair next to the girl. Naruto hesitated for a second, then plopped down beside her. Hey," he greeted awkwardly, trying not to sound like a dork. The girl raised an eyebrow, barely glancing up from her screen to look him over, then went right back to scrolling. Naruto immediately felt self-conscious. Did he look unsightly or something? He nervously patted his hair, wondering if he had food on his face. Hiyashi broke the silence. "Naruto, meet Ino Yamanaka." Naruto's eyes widened. That name. He knew that name. Ino? He tilted his head, trying to place it. Wait a sec, isn't that the girl Sasuke dated? The realization hit him. Oh man, this is awkward. Hiyashi didn't seem to care for Naruto's internal drama and continued. "Ino, you'll be part of Naruto's team. You're going to be the second driver." Naruto's jaw dropped. "Wait, what? Hiyashi, I thought I was putting the team together. You said I was in charge." Hiyashi fixed him with a stern look. "I did, but I believe I said I'd intervene if necessary. And trust me, this is necessary. Ino is a talented driver. You'll need her." Naruto turned to Ino, who had finally looked up from her phone and was now sizing him up, a critical gleam in her eye. He stared back, wondering just how good she was for Hiyashi to put her on the team without consulting him. Hiyashi pulled up a recording on the screen. "I've been keeping an eye on both of you. Watch." Naruto watched as footage played of a sleek purple Porsche zipping around a track with surgical precision. His eyes widened as recognition hit him. "Wait, that's you?" He pointed at the screen, then at Ino, incredulous. "You were the lead car in Group A during the qualifiers." "No way." Ino smirked. "Duh. And now you're supposed to impress me." Naruto blinked, taken aback. "Huh? I already know I'm a skilled driver," Ino said, crossing her arms. "You're the one who needs to prove himself. Convince me why I should care about this whole team thing." Naruto shot her a look of disbelief, but before he could reply, Hiyashi stepped in. "Naruto won Group B in the same qualification race. He's proven himself, Ino. You two will work well together." Ino glanced at the footage of Naruto's Chevelle, the car that had dominated Group B's race. "Oh yeah, I think I vaguely remember seeing that hunk of metal." Naruto, slightly offended, muttered, "Hey, that hunk of metal got me the win." Hiyashi clapped his hands, interrupting the banter. "Good. I expect you two to get along and work as a team. Naruto, introduce Ino to the rest of the members in the coming days." Naruto nodded reluctantly. "Got it." The scene shifted to Naruto and Ino walking out of the building together. Naruto was trying, unsuccessfully, to make meaningful conversation. "So, Ino, I was thinking maybe we could meet up later to, discuss strategy and stuff." Ino barely acknowledged him, staring ahead as if he wasn't even there. "Yeah, sure," she said flatly. "Whatever." Naruto scratched the back of his head, grumbling to himself. This was going to be harder than he thought. As they stepped outside, he hesitated for a moment before awkwardly clearing his throat. "Hey, can I get a ride?" Ino finally looked at him, narrowing her eyes. "A ride? Yeah, like in your car?" Naruto clarified, feeling more foolish by the second. "I just, didn't want to spend money on a cab." Ino raised an eyebrow. "I didn't drive here. I came with a friend. But I can ask if they're cool with it." Naruto sighed in relief. "Thanks. I'd really appreciate it." Ino walked toward a white BMW parked by the curb. Naruto followed, his hopes rising. "Sweet ride," he muttered, admiring the sleek car. Ino walked up to the passenger door, leaned into the window, and started chatting with the driver, who Naruto still couldn't see clearly. After a brief exchange, Ino waved him over. "You're good. Come on." Naruto walked up, about to thank whoever was driving, when he opened the door and froze. Sitting in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel and a look of mild surprise on her face, was none other than Hinata Hyuga. Naruto's jaw hung open. "Hinata?" Hinata blinked, equally shocked to see him. Naruto? Naruto stood there, speechless, his mind racing. Out of all the people who could have been Ino's friend, it just had to be Hinata. Well, Ino said casually from the backseat, oblivious to the awkward tension. You getting in, or what? Naruto stood there for a second longer, trying to process the situation. Then, slowly, he climbed into the car, his face burning with embarrassment. Hinata glanced at him shyly before focusing on the road. It's nice to see you. Naruto managed to stammer, yeah, you too. And with that, they drove off, the awkwardness hanging thick in the air. Naruto sat awkwardly in the passenger seat of Hinata's car, trying desperately to think of something, anything, to say. The silence between them was thick, almost suffocating. How did I end up here? He cursed his luck. They had just dropped off Ino at some bakery, and she had waved off Hinata, telling her to leave without her. Now, it was just him and Hinata. His ex, if you could even call it that. They'd gone out exactly once back in middle school before he dumped her. Naruto cringed at the memory. She hadn't taken it well, and after that, they drifted apart when high school started. And now, here they were. Alone, in her car. Naruto's mind scrambled for something to say. He couldn't just sit there like an idiot. He cleared his throat. So, how do you know Hiyashi? Hinata's grip tightened on the steering wheel slightly, and she glanced at him. He's my father. Naruto's heart sank as he realized his dumb mistake. Oh, crap, right, I knew that. It slipped my mind. Sorry, it's been a while, you know, and I'm kinda nervous, he stammered. I didn't know if you were, still mad or something, since, well, how we ended. Hinata didn't say anything for a moment. Naruto felt like he was sinking into the seat. Great job, dipshit. He glanced sideways at her, noticing her slight smile. Then, out of nowhere, she giggled. It was soft at first, but quickly grew into a full-blown laugh. Naruto blinked. What's so funny? It's just, that was 7 years ago, Hinata said, her voice light with amusement. We were kids. Naruto stared at her, wide-eyed. You're not mad? Hinata smiled, shaking her head. Honestly, I'd forgotten all about it. And you? She shot him a teasing glance. I'm surprised to see you, though. With Ino, no less. Naruto's eyes widened. Oh, no. Ino's just a teammate. Nothing's going on between us or anything. Hinata looked at him, slightly amused. I didn't say there was. I just wanted you to know. Naruto added quickly, feeling the heat rise in his face. You know, since you're her friend and all. You deserve to know. Hinata's amusement only grew, her smile turning into a grin as she watched him dig himself into a hole. Naruto continued, feeling the desperation clawing at him. It's just, I didn't want you to think I was, with her. He finally sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Okay, I'm just gonna shut up now before I make this worse. That did it. Hinata started laughing again, and Naruto couldn't help but chuckle along. You're still as goofy as ever, she said between laughs, glancing at him. Naruto blinked, then chuckled along with her. Yeah, some things never change, huh? She smiled at him, then focused back on the road, her laughter lingering in the air between them. Naruto shifted in his seat, feeling the tension ease just a little. He watched Hinata drive, then remembered something. Hey, Ino's a pretty great driver. She'd be awesome on my team. Hinata nodded. Yeah, I think you'd really like having her on your side. She's quite skilled. Seen her in action before, Naruto added. She's damn good. She is, Hinata agreed with a small smile. Naruto nodded, thankful for the change in topic. He paused for a moment, then asked, why's she even doing this tournament, though? Seems kind of random. Hinata sighed, a small smile playing on her lips. That's just Ino. She's always looking for something exciting, an adrenaline junkie, if you will. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Adrenaline junkie? Hinata sighed. She loves the thrill more than anything. That's why she keeps getting into these things. Naruto nodded. Yeah, I get it. Everyone's got their thing, right? Hinata glanced at him again. And what about you, Naruto? Are you racing for fun? Naruto scratched his head. I guess I'm just trying to get out of the house, Clear my head. You get it, right? Hinata's expression softened. Yeah, I do. The conversation lulled, leaving a comfortable silence between them for a moment. Naruto found himself watching her out of the corner of his eye. She looked different from the shy girl he remembered in middle school. More confident, more composed. Man, I was such a jerk back then, Naruto thought, guilt creeping in. He remembered agreeing to go to the movies with her just because he wanted free food and thought her eyes were pretty. And then he dumped her for some stupid reason, probably something immature. He debated bringing it up, maybe apologizing or something, but luckily for him, they reached his stop. He let out a small sigh of relief. Saved by the stop, Naruto unbuckled his seatbelt and stepped out of the car. Thanks for the ride, Hinata. Hinata smiled gently. You're welcome, Naruto. They waved goodbye, and Naruto watched her drive off, the sound of the car fading into the distance. He shoved his hands into his pockets, his mind drifting to other things. His team now having 3 members. One more, and he'd be eligible for the next round of the tournament by the weekend. His mind wandered to Ino Yamanaka, his new teammate and Sasuke's on-and-off girlfriend back in high school. He chuckled, remembering how Sasuke used to swing from complaining about Ino to sneaking out with her within the same week. Typical Sasuke. He had to admit, Ino was quite a looker, and Sasuke had been envied by a lot of guys in high school for landing her. Seeing her again today, Naruto couldn't deny she'd gotten even more gorgeous. But then, Naruto's thoughts wandered back to Hinata. Another person puberty had been kind to. In fact, she'd grown up to be pretty stunning in her own right. He figured it made sense she and Ino were friends now. Both of them had turned into these super attractive young women. Naruto chuckled to himself as he walked toward home. Man, pretty much every girl I know is a total hottie, and here I am, still single. Suddenly, he stopped dead in his tracks, a realization hitting him like a brick to the face. I didn't get Ino's or Hinata's numbers, he exclaimed, smacking his forehead. Fuck, now I'll have to ask Hiyashi for their contact info. That's gonna be so awkward. He sighed and resumed walking, shaking his head at his own misfortune. As much progress as he'd made today, it looked like he still had a long way to go. At least one thing was for sure, this team was going to keep things interesting. And with that, Naruto continued his walk home, silently hoping his next encounter wouldn't be quite so nerve-wracking. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He fished it out, glancing at the screen. His stomach dropped. Mom. Oh, crap. He muttered under his breath, knowing exactly what was coming. He hesitated for a second but quickly accepted the call. Hey, Mom. What's up? What's up? Kushina's voice rang in his ear, sharp and fiery. Where the hell have you been, Naruto? Naruto flinched. He had barely said 2 words and she was already pissed. What do you mean? What do I mean? Kushina repeated, her voice rising. I went by your job today, and guess what? You weren't there. Naruto's heart skipped a beat. Oh, crap, here we go. I thought you were supposed to be working, huh? But no, I get there and they tell me you haven't shown up in days. Days, Naruto. Naruto grimaced, holding the phone slightly away from his ear to avoid going deaf. Yeah, about that. You better have a good explanation for this, Kushina snapped. Don't tell me you've been skipping work to hang out with your dumb friends again. No, I wasn't skipping, Naruto said quickly, trying to calm her down. I quit. The line went dead silent for a few seconds. You what? Naruto swallowed nervously. I quit. You know, the job. You quit your job? Kushina repeated, her voice dangerously low, which Naruto knew was never a good sign. Naruto Uzumaki, are you telling me you just up and quit your job without telling anyone? Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, wincing. Well, yeah, kinda. Kushina's voice shot up again. Why the hell would you do that? You need that job, Naruto. What's gotten into you? Naruto scratched his head, his mind scrambling for an excuse. He couldn't tell her the real reason. That he was busy preparing for the upcoming tournament and working with Hiyashi's team. That would just lead to a whole new argument. Think. I got a new job. Naruto blurted out. Kushina paused. A new job? Where? Naruto panicked. He needed to think of something fast. Hyuga Enterprises, he said quickly, cringing at the blatant lie. Kushina's tone shifted immediately. At Hiyashi Hyuga's company? No way. That's actually impressive, Naruto. Naruto blinked. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. I'm, really excited about it. Kushina sounded genuinely surprised, which wasn't something Naruto heard from her often. Well, why didn't you say so in the first place? I was worried sick, thinking you were wasting time. But if you're working for Hiashi's company, then that's fantastic. Congratulations, Naruto. Naruto let out a nervous laugh. Thanks, Mom. Yeah, I've been, really busy with it. You know, just lots of work. Of course, that place is no joke. You better make the most of this opportunity. Kushina said proudly. I always knew you had it in you. Naruto smiled awkwardly, feeling the guilt settle in. Yeah, well, I'm glad you're proud. I am, Kushina said. But don't forget to call your mother once in a while, alright? I was worried when I didn't hear from you. Yeah, I'll call more, Naruto promised quickly, hoping to end the call before he slipped up again. But, I gotta go now. I'm, super busy with work stuff. Alright, I'll let you go this time, Kushina said. But you better not disappear on me again, got it? Naruto exhaled in relief. Got it, Mom. Talk to you later. Love you, Naruto. Love you too, Mom. He quickly ended the call and shoved his phone back into his pocket, letting out a long breath. Phew, that was close. As he continued walking home, his mind swirled with everything that had happened today. From the awkward conversation with Hinata to lying to his mom about his job. This day had been a whirlwind. Well, at least she bought the Hiashi story, Naruto muttered to himself. His thoughts wandered back to the tournament. He now had 3 members on his team, and all he needed was one more. If he could pull it off, he'd be eligible for the next round by the weekend. And after everything that had gone down today, he needed to focus. Naruto groaned. Man, I'm really batting 1,000 today. He kicked a stray can down the street as he continued walking home, shaking his head with a smirk. Gotta get it together, Naruto. Sasuke sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly into a cup of tea he hadn't touched in over 10 minutes. He wasn't really in the mood for it, but his mother had insisted before rushing off to run errands. The Uchiha household was quiet, peaceful even. And boring. The faint sound of footsteps coming down the stairs echoed through the kitchen. Sasuke didn't even need to look up to know who it was. His mood immediately soured. Itachi strolled in, casual as always, wearing his stupid calm expression that never left his face. Sasuke could feel the air around him shift just from his brother's presence, a feeling of inferiority creeping in like clockwork. Good morning, little brother, Itachi said smoothly, not a single trace of real warmth in his voice. Sasuke grunted, barely acknowledging him, his eyes still fixed on the swirling tea. Itachi, oblivious or perhaps purposely ignoring the lack of enthusiasm, made his way over to the counter and began making himself a cup of coffee. Every movement he made seemed perfectly measured and graceful, as though even pouring water required some kind of zen-like mastery. Sasuke hated it. What are you up to today? Itachi asked, in the tone of someone who already knew the answer. Another day of quiet reflection? Sasuke's eye twitched. I've got plans, he muttered, sounding less convincing than he intended. Itachi didn't look back, but Sasuke could hear the faint hint of amusement in his voice. Oh, plans, huh? Itachi paused, stirring his coffee. Like what? Sasuke opened his mouth, but no words came out. What was he doing today? Hanging out with Naruto? Maybe wandering around the village pretending to look busy? His hand clenched around the cup as the silence stretched on. Itachi finally turned around, leaning casually against the counter, his face as serene as ever. I'm just asking because. Well, you've seemed a little uninspired lately. Sasuke's jaw tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Itachi shrugged, the most infuriatingly nonchalant shrug in the history of mankind. Nothing, really. It's just that. Some people your age are out there pushing their limits, achieving things. You know, living up to their potential. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. I'm not wasting my potential. Itachi raised an eyebrow, but the look on his face made it clear that he wasn't convinced. Of course you're not. You're just taking your time. Which is fine, I suppose. Sasuke could feel his blood pressure rising. There it was, the casual, condescending Itachi tone that he knew all too well. I'm not taking my time, Sasuke snapped, a little more defensive than he meant to sound. I'm doing plenty. Itachi gave him a patronizing nod. Oh, I'm sure you are. Sasuke gritted his teeth. He was so sick of that tone. The way Itachi made everything sound like some kind of subtle dig at him. And worse, Itachi always managed to do it without even trying. Itachi took another calm sip of his coffee, staring at Sasuke over the rim of his cup. I just thought, maybe you'd want to try something new. You know, to challenge yourself. To show everyone what you're really capable of. Sasuke's hand clenched into a fist under the table. I don't need to prove anything to anyone, he said through gritted teeth. Of course not, Itachi replied smoothly. But it couldn't hurt to remind them. He smiled, a small, infuriatingly smug smile. But then again, you're probably comfortable where you are. Some people don't feel the need to compete. Sasuke could feel his eye twitching again. I'm not comfortable, Itachi. Itachi's gaze softened, as though he were trying to placate a child throwing a tantrum. There's no shame in it, Sasuke. Not everyone is meant to be, well, like me. That was it. Sasuke's blood boiled. His fists clenched so hard that his knuckles turned white. He didn't even remember standing up, but suddenly he was on his feet, glaring daggers at his brother. I'm actually in a racing tournament, Sasuke declared, his voice louder than he intended. Itachi blinked, momentarily surprised, before that same serene smile slid back onto his face. A racing tournament? Oh, I didn't know you were even considering that. He nodded slowly. Well, that's good, I suppose. It'll be nice to see you out there, giving it your all. You always did like cars. Sasuke's jaw tightened. I'll do more than give it my all. I'll win the whole thing. Itachi's smile didn't waver. If anything, it looked like he was amused. Of course you will, Sasuke. I'm sure you'll do great. He took another leisurely sip of coffee. I'll be cheering for you. If you need any tips, well, you know where to find me. Sasuke practically growled under his breath. He didn't need tips. He didn't need Itachi's condescending approval. All he needed was to wipe that stupid, smug smile off his brother's face. Itachi gave him one last nod before turning to leave the kitchen. Good luck, little brother. I'm sure you'll make it past the first round. Sasuke's eye twitched again. I'm going to fucking win. Itachi paused at the doorway, glancing back with a gentle, infuriating smile. I'm sure you will. And with that, he was gone, leaving Sasuke standing there, seething with rage. He didn't even know why he had said it. Joining Naruto's team hadn't even crossed his mind until now, but there was no backing out. Not after that conversation. Sasuke stared down at his untouched tea, his mind whirling. He was going to join Naruto's team, and he was going to win the whole damn tournament. Not because he particularly cared about racing, but because he absolutely refused to let Itachi have the satisfaction of thinking he was anything less than the best. This wasn't about proving something to the world. It was about proving something to Itachi Uchiha. And Sasuke wasn't going to lose. The next morning, Naruto sat at the small desk in his room, papers scattered everywhere like some kind of chaotic battlefield of half-baked ideas. In the middle of it all was a large picture of the racetrack for the upcoming tournament, half crumpled from the number of times he had shoved it into his bag, pulled it out, and shoved it back in again. A pencil hung loosely between his lips as he scribbled some notes in his barely legible handwriting. Turn 3. Tight. Don't crash here. He stared at the note for a second, then frowned, erasing the last part. Turn 3. Still tight. Don't die here. Satisfied, he leaned back in his chair and nodded at his masterpiece of strategy. So far, his plan mostly consisted of, don't crash, and, go fast, but hey, a plan was a plan. He was halfway through another brilliant insight about cornering speeds when his phone buzzed loudly on the table, nearly making him jump out of his skin. Gah, what the? Naruto grabbed his phone, blinking in surprise at the name on the screen. Sasuke. He furrowed his brow. Sasuke? What did he want? They hadn't spoken since. Well, since Naruto had begged him to join his team and Sasuke had flat out refused. His thumb hovered over the green icon for a moment before he finally answered. Yo, Sas. I'm joining your team. Naruto blinked, the greeting still stuck halfway in his throat. Wah, I said I'm joining your team. Don't make me repeat myself. Naruto's brain scrambled to catch up. He opened his mouth, but all that came out was a weird, strangled, huh? Why you are? Yes, Sasuke replied, his voice flat and businesslike, as if joining the team was the same as ordering takeout. We'll talk later. I don't have time for this right now. Yeah, sure. Naruto sputtered, still trying to process what was happening. We can meet later in. Click. The line went dead. Naruto stared at his phone in disbelief. He hadn't even said goodbye. That was Sasuke for you. But still, Sasuke was joining his team. For a few seconds, Naruto just sat there, dumbfounded, as if his brain had short-circuited. Then, suddenly, he shot out of his chair, nearly knocking over the desk in the process. Yes, he pumped his fist in the air, practically bouncing on his toes. I've got Sasuke. I've actually got Sasuke. The pencil that had been hanging from his mouth fell to the floor as he broke into a wild grin. His team was finally coming together. He paced around his small room, talking to himself in a giddy rush. Okay, let's think. I've got Sasuke now. That's huge. And with Shisui as co-engineer, I've got the best crew around. He tapped his chin, excitement bubbling up in his chest. Sakura's on board as team lead, Ino's my co-driver. We're set. We're totally set. Naruto glanced down at the track picture on his desk again, feeling an unusual surge of confidence. Things were looking up. With Sasuke, his cousin Shisui, Sakura, and Ino, his team was stacked. They had all the pieces to be a serious contender. But as he stared at the map, another thought hit him, one that deflated his excitement just a little bit. Wait a sec. He frowned. What the heck are we gonna call ourselves? Naruto slumped back into his chair, scratching his head. A name. They needed a name for the team. Something cool. Something that screamed victory and power. Something that would strike fear into the hearts of their opponents. He scribbled down a few ideas in the corner of the track picture. The Speed Demons. Meh, too cheesy, he muttered, crossing it out. Furious 5. Sakura would think it's lame, he sighed, erasing it. Naruto stared at the blank space where his ideas had once been and let out a small groan. Naming a team was harder than it looked. I'll figure it out later, he said, waving a hand dismissively at the paper. There was no rush, except for the fact that he needed to register the team today. He let out an exaggerated sigh and slumped deeper into his chair. Man, why is it always the little stuff that's the hardest? But even as he complained to himself, Naruto couldn't help but smile. The team was coming together, and the tournament was just around the corner. They had the talent. They had the drive. Now all they needed was a name. Team 7? Sakura's voice echoed through the open air as she held up the ID card Naruto had just handed her, eyebrows furrowed in disbelief. Naruto, standing in the middle of the group with his usual cocky grin, was already bracing himself for the incoming heat. Present around him were Sakura, Sasuke, Shisui, and Ino. They were all gathered at the venue for tomorrow's race, where other teams were already buzzing with last-minute preparations, but clearly, the name situation was a priority. What do you think? Naruto asked, grinning nervously. Ino didn't miss a beat. What do I think? I think it's a terrible name, she declared, crossing her arms. I mean, seriously, Naruto? Team 7? Could you be any less creative? You should have asked us. We could have voted on it or something. Sakura nodded in agreement, clearly irritated. She's right, Naruto. Team 7. That's literally just the number of our registration slot. You put zero effort into this. Naruto scratched the back of his head, trying to defend himself. Hey, it sounded cool in my head, okay? It's simple, it's clean, it's boring, Shisui cut in, sighing with disappointment. It sounds like the name of a group project you don't care about. Uninspired. Naruto groaned. Come on, guys, it's not that bad. I don't mind it. Sasuke spoke up, shrugging nonchalantly. His voice, calm as ever, carried through the group like a sudden breeze. At hearing this, Ino's attitude suddenly did a complete 180. Oh, well, you know what? Maybe it's not that bad after all, she said quickly, offering a wide, forced grin. It's, kinda catchy, actually. Right, Sasuke? Sakura shot Ino a deadpan look. Oh, sure, now it's catchy, Before they could descend further into bickering, Naruto waved his hands to get everyone's attention. Alright, look, we're not here to argue about the name. Which is trash, Ino muttered under her breath. We're here to practice. Naruto continued, ignoring Ino's jab. We need to get some laps under our belt, learn to work together, see what we can improve. Tomorrow's race is a big deal, guys. We gotta be ready. Sakura stepped forward, taking charge. Exactly. Which is why I'm organizing this practice session. As team leader, she added with emphasis, casting a stern look at Naruto. I've already drawn up a plan for today. Naruto blinked. Wait, you already planned everything out? Sakura shot him a flat stare. Yes, Naruto. Some of us prepare. She pulled out a small notepad, flipping through pages as if it were some military briefing. Naruto, you and Ino will start with practice laps around the track to get a feel for it. Sasuke, Shisui, and I will observe and take notes on your progress. After 2 laps, we'll time your 3rd lap to see how you're doing. Naruto nodded enthusiastically. Hell yeah, I'm ready for this. Ino, on the other hand, looked thoroughly unimpressed, her arms crossed as she leaned against her car. Boring. I know how to drive, Sakura. I don't need a warm-up. I should be doing actual laps, not this beginner crap. Sakura pinched the bridge of her nose, already sensing the headache forming. Ino, it's not about whether you know how to drive. It's about getting used to the track and coordinating with Naruto. You know, teamwork? Besides, Naruto chipped in with a grin, it's about you learning how to work with me, Ino. Ino gave him a sharp look, her expression daring. Work with you? Please, ramen breath. I don't even have to do that, I can just beat everyone. Naruto raised his hands in mock surrender. Alright, you're the expert I guess. At this point Sakura handed over headsets for communication, clipping one to Naruto's shirt. You'll need these. I'll be talking to both of you while you're on the track. Don't ignore me. If I say something, it's because I see something you're screwing up. Ino, still grumpy, rolled her eyes. I bet Sasuke would guide me better. She shot Sasuke a flirty look. Don't you think, Sasuke? Sasuke sighed deeply, not even bothering to look at her. I don't care. Good to know you're paying attention, Sakura muttered, glaring at Ino. Sasuke can speak up if he thinks there's something worth adding, but right now, you're following my instructions. Ino scoffed, tossing her hair over her shoulder. Whatever. I'm already perfect. There's nothing to improve. Sakura's eye twitched, and she pressed her fingers to her temple. It's protocol, Ino. And you do need to improve. Especially when it comes to working with Naruto. You're driving as a team, not solo. Might as well be working solo cause this guy doesn't exactly look like champion material to me. Speaking of self-improvement, why don't we start by helping you learn some fucking manners? Sakura snarled at Ino, her eyes narrowed with frustration. Shisui, who had been watching the whole exchange with mild amusement, clapped his hands together before the situation could escalate. Alright, enough chit-chat. Let's get to work. Sasuke and I will be in the booth observing and taking notes. Let's see if you two can actually work together without killing each other. He turned to Sasuke. Come on, let's get to the booth and get this over with. Sasuke nodded and followed Shisui with Sakura trailing behind, leaving Naruto and Ino to head towards their cars. Naruto flashed Ino a grin. Ready to roll? Ino gave him a sharp look. Don't slow me down, Naruto. If you even think about lagging behind, I'll leave you in the dust. Naruto chuckled. We'll see about that. Ino rolled her eyes and strutted over to her car, the sleek purple Porsche 911 she'd used in the qualifiers. She slid into the driver's seat like she was born for it, revving the engine just to show off. The sound roared through the venue, turning a few heads from nearby teams. Naruto, now left alone for a moment, took a glance around. Several teams were already hard at work, some of their cars already sporting polished team logos and fresh paint jobs. His own car, the black and white Chevelle, still lacked any branding. Damn, he muttered. We'll need to get some logos on these bad boys before tomorrow. Just then, Sakura's voice crackled in his earpiece, snapping him out of his thoughts. Naruto, stop daydreaming and get in your car. Let's get this started. Naruto grinned, jogging over to the Chevelle and hopping in. Alright, boss lady. Keep your eyes sharp, I'm on it. As he buckled in and started the engine, the sound of Ino's Porsche peeling out of her parking spot filled the air. She was already speeding toward the track, clearly eager to show off. Naruto couldn't help but shake his head as he watched her go. She's confident, I'll give her that, he muttered to himself, gripping the steering wheel. Get moving, Naruto, Sakura's voice crackled again, more insistent this time. You got a lot of work to do. Naruto smirked. Alright, let's show him what we've got. He revved the Chevelle's engine, feeling the rumble beneath him, and shot off toward the track, ready to tackle the practice session ahead. Tomorrow's race was gonna be one hell of a ride. The roar of engines filled the air as 5 cars lined up on the track, the crowd's excitement buzzing louder than the roar of the machines. Camera drones whirred overhead, capturing every inch of the tarmac as the racers prepared for the adrenaline-pumping relay race. Ino gripped the wheel of her purple Porsche 911, a confident smirk tugging at her lips. She could feel the energy coursing through her veins, every muscle tense with anticipation. Her gaze flicked to the red flag sitting in the passenger seat next to her, the baton in this relay race. She could do this. All right, Ino, came Sakura's voice through the headset. You got a straightaway ahead of you. Focus. Ino rolled her eyes but smirked, pressing down on the gas just a little harder, feeling the car purr beneath her. I've got this, Sakura. Relax. The announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeakers, hyping up the audience, as the red lights above the track began to flicker. And they're off. 5 racers tearing down the straight. It's anyone's game at this point, folks, but that white Mitsubishi is already making a bold claim for first. The 5 cars blasted forward in a screech of rubber and smoke, the initial straight line a chaotic battle for position. Ino immediately found herself boxed in between the red Mk4 Toyota Supra ahead of her and the black Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat right on her tail. Up front, the white Mitsubishi Evo X pulled ahead, its exhaust growling like a beast unleashed. At the rear of the pack was a yellow Subaru BRZ. Eyes on the prize, Ino, she muttered to herself, feeling the rush of adrenaline sharpen her focus. She loved this feeling: control, speed, power. She tore down the straightaway, adjusting her grip on the wheel as they approached the first corner. Third place for now. Not for long. Just as she rounded the bend, she spotted the Supra ahead, entering the turn too sharply. The rear of the car fishtail-ed for a fraction of a second, just enough. Amateur mistake. Your loss, my gain. With a grin, Ino seized the opportunity and dove into the inside lane, her Porsche sliding cleanly past the Supra in a perfectly executed move. She felt the surge of triumph as she pulled into second place. Not bad, Ino, Sakura's voice crackled in her ear. But don't get cocky. Yeah, save the lecture. Second place now, aren't I? But before she could enjoy her victory for too long, Ino heard it. The unmistakable growl of the Dodge Hellcat's V8 engine roaring up behind her. The rumble made her glance at her rearview mirror, and sure enough, the massive black muscle car was gaining on her fast. Ino, heads up. Charger on your left. Sakura's voice was urgent. Ino gritted her teeth. I see it. I'm not blind, Sakura. The Dodge was now trying to pull even with her, the 2 cars neck and neck. The guy behind the wheel of the Hellcat was definitely gunning for her, and that beast of an engine wasn't something to underestimate. The Porsche's engine whined as Ino mashed her foot down on the gas, trying to keep ahead. She couldn't let this muscle car intimidate her. Ino, don't let him get too close. One wrong move and he'll. I know what the hell I'm doing. Ino snapped, gripping the wheel tighter as the Charger loomed closer, the sound of its engine almost vibrating through her bones. The Charger edged closer, the driver clearly trying to nudge his way in. Not happening. Oh, come on, asshole. Ino growled, glancing at the Dodge as it rumbled menacingly beside her. This isn't bumper cars, get off my ass. She swerved slightly, trying to cut him off, but the driver wasn't backing down. The Charger's raw power was trying to overpower her agility, but Ino wasn't about to give up her position. Ino, just shut up, Sakura. The 2 cars barreled toward the next curve, the crowd roaring in excitement as the tension between the 2 vehicles built to a breaking point. The Charger was trying to force her wide, but Ino refused to let him bully her out of position. Her knuckles whitened on the wheel, her heart pounding as she focused on the road. This wasn't just about racing now. This was personal. Come on, you heavy hunk of crap. Ino growled, shifting up and pushing her Porsche as hard as she could. The engine screamed in response, and slowly, she began to inch ahead again. Just a little more. Just a few more feet. The next corner was coming up fast, and she wasn't about to let this guy win the inside. Not today. Ino's pulse raced in time with the engine, her grin widening. I've got this. As the 2 cars neared the curve, the Charger began to lag just slightly behind. Sakura's voice chimed in, tense but amused. Not bad. But try not to die before the handoff, okay? Ino laughed, her confidence surging. Please, this is gonna be a cakewalk. But as she eyed the white Evo still leading the pack, a determined gleam flashed in her eyes. She wasn't just here to hold second place. She was here to win. Back in the team booth, Naruto stood by, eyes glued to the live feed on Sakura's laptop, arms crossed as he watched the race unfold. Sasuke and Shisui were flanking Sakura, their eyes equally focused. Naruto broke the silence, his usual optimism shining through. Ino's got this. She's been killing it so far. Sasuke, ever the realist, raised an eyebrow. It's still tight. That white lancer hasn't budged from the front since the start. And the Hellcat is right on top of her. Yeah, but she can pull it off, Shisui added, trying to be an optimistic voice. Besides, we've still got Naruto to finish the relay. It's not over till it's over. Naruto, however, was starting to grow uneasy. Wait a minute, he said, a frown settling on his face. That white lancer. I've seen it before. It's the same guy from my qualification race. He set the fastest time that day. Well, shit, Sasuke muttered, his expression not changing much, but his tone was all the concern Naruto needed to hear. Shisui, forever the voice of cool confidence, shrugged and stretched his arms. Relax, we've still got a shot. Ino's driving like a maniac in all the right ways. Sakura, laser-focused on her screen, watched as Ino maneuvered through the series of winding turns. Her eyes darted over the data, keeping track of every speed and gap between the cars. She brought her hand to the mic attached to her headset and spoke calmly. Ino, how are you holding up? The scene shifted back to Ino, gripping the wheel with fierce determination, eyes locked on the track ahead. Her car drifted gracefully through the turns, tires screeching as the rubber gripped the asphalt. She grinned as she noticed the Dodge that had been hounding her had finally fallen back a bit, allowing the yellow Subaru to overtake it. Finally, she muttered to herself. But the Toyota Supra was still too damn close for comfort. Hearing Sakura's voice through the headset, she snapped back in irritation. I'm fine, Sakura. Let me focus. Ino's eyes stayed glued to the annoyingly consistent Mitsubishi Evo X in front of her. It hadn't made a single mistake, but Ino was determined to find any opening. She spotted the next turn approaching, a sharp 60-degree right turn, and Sakura's voice echoed in her ear again. Right turn, 200 meters ahead. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Let me drive, Ino barked back, her voice laced with frustration. She exhaled and pushed her irritation aside, focusing on the track. The Evo was locked in, but she could do this. Easing her Porsche into the turn, she let the car drift ever so slightly, keeping a tight line on the apex. That's when she caught the Supra creeping up on her inside, trying to use the turn to pass. Oh no you don't, Ino thought with a smirk. The route she'd chosen gave her a perfect, smooth exit into the next stretch. The Supra, however, had to slow down just a bit too much to avoid overshooting, and in that tiny moment, the Dodge Charger behind them roared past the Supra on its outside. Serves you right, Ino thought smugly as she punched the gas, her Porsche zooming ahead. Back in the booth, Naruto was practically vibrating with nervous energy. His hand landed on Sasuke's shoulder, gripping tightly. Come on, Ino, hold that position. Sakura, still glued to her screen, cleared her throat before speaking into the mic again. Ino, after the next 4 turns, it's time to head to the pit and pass the flag. Naruto's up next. Ino's voice came through the speaker, clipped and focused. Got it. Without taking her eyes off the screen, Sakura turned to the others, her tone all business. Alright, boys. Get moving. Warm up Naruto's car. Sasuke, Shisui, and Naruto sprang into action like clockwork, moving toward the gleaming muscle car that was waiting to take on the next leg of the race. Sasuke, ever the perfectionist, went straight for the hood, popping it open as Shisui inspected the tires. Naruto slid into the driver's seat, starting the engine with a throaty rumble that vibrated through the entire booth. Rev it, Naruto, Sasuke called over the roar, checking the engine status. Naruto revved the Chevelle, grinning as the high-pitched whine of the supercharger kicked in, adding a little extra punch to the already monstrous V8 engine. She's purring like a damn kitten, Sasuke. You sure that supercharger's legal? Sasuke shot him a sideways glance, half smirking. Nope. Shisui chuckled as he finished checking the tires. Hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Naruto revved the engine again, feeling the power surge through the car. This thing's ready to eat. Let's go. Meanwhile, back in the booth, Sakura's eyes remained locked on the screen, her heart racing as she watched Ino's purple Porsche fly down the track. She bit her lip, silently willing Ino to keep her position. The competition was fierce, but Ino was holding her own. Come on, Ino, Sakura whispered to herself, fingers twitching on the keyboard. Deep down, she hoped Ino could maintain her impressive run, at least long enough to give Naruto a fighting chance. It wouldn't be easy, though. This race was just the beginning. Over the course of 3 races, a team could earn a maximum of 18 points if they finished in first place every time. 6 points for first, 4 for second, 2 for third. And they needed a strong start. Naruto's voice cut through the tension, loud and confident. "Don't worry, Sakura. Once I'm out there, everyone's gonna be eating dust. We've got this." Sakura rolled her eyes but couldn't help the small smile that crept onto her face. "You better not screw this up, Naruto. Ino's worked her ass off for this." Naruto grinned, revving the engine again for good measure. "You know me, no pressure." Sasuke shot Naruto a look from under the hood. "You always say that, and yet, pressure seems to be the only thing you ever feel." Naruto shrugged. "Hey, it works, doesn't it?" Shisui clapped a hand on Sasuke's shoulder, grinning. "As long as we win, who gives a damn?" Sakura shook her head as the boys joked around, her gaze still locked on the screen, where Ino's Porsche continued to tear through the track. The pressure was on, and they all knew it. But for now, all they could do was hope. The roar of engines echoed through the track, but in the white Mitsubishi Lancer Evo X, there was only calm. Well, at least on the outside. Inside, Shikamaru Nara's brain was working at lightning speed, his mind a tangled web of calculations, scenarios, and probabilities. His eyes darted behind the sleek, medicated glasses perched on his nose, scanning every detail of the race in front of him. The cockpit of the Lancer was his battlefield, and he was the tactician. No movement was random, no turn was taken without planning 5 steps ahead. So far, everything is as predicted, he thought, feeling a smirk tug at the corner of his mouth. Ino Yamanaka, driving the purple 2018 Porsche 911 GTS, too aggressive for her own good. Classic mistake. I'll just bait her into the next curve, let her think she's gaining ground, and when she goes wide, bam, I cut inside, maintain the perfect line. Easy. His hands were steady on the wheel as he approached the next bend. In his head, a running monologue was playing out, entirely for his own amusement. Ino's probably sweating bullets right now. Her mind's in overdrive, panicking about that 1998 MK.4 Supra tailgating her. He scoffed internally. A rookie mistake. Doesn't she realize all she has to do is, no, wait. Never mind. She wouldn't understand the mechanics of it. Her driving technique is so emotional, so human. As he shifted gears, his mind continued spinning a web of hypothetical situations, each one more convoluted than the last. I wonder what she's thinking right now. Probably something like, he dropped into a mocking inner voice, oh no, I hope I don't screw up this turn. What if Shikamaru's watching me? Oh, wait, he's ahead of me, of course he's watching me. His smirk widened. Poor thing. Too bad she doesn't understand that this isn't just a race, it's chess. And I'm playing against a bunch of checkers enthusiasts. What a drag. Shikamaru adjusted his glasses slightly, even though they didn't need adjusting. They were the perfect fit, like everything else in his life. Another move, another play, just like clockwork, he thought smugly, his ego inflating with each second. He stole a glance at the overhead stadium screen. Ah, there's Naruto Uzumaki's team in the pit, scrambling to warm up that monster of a car. I can already picture Naruto revving the engine, looking all cocky. Poor guy. He probably thinks horsepower can compensate for skill. Shikamaru's brain kicked into another gear, visualizing the next 20 moves ahead in the race. He saw every inch of the track, every car's position, every possible move that could happen. His mind felt like a computer running a million scenarios per second. He wasn't just racing, he was dominating. Let's see, Ino will try to close the gap in the next stretch. But she'll overshoot the turn again, like she did last lap. That'll give me a few extra milliseconds to widen my lead. By the time I hit the hairpin, the Subaru BRZ behind me will have to pull back, too much speed going in. Which means the Supra might try a risky inside pass on the next turn. Classic, predictable, boring. His fingers tightened on the wheel as he expertly took the turn, his Lancer gliding through like a scalpel through flesh. Ah, perfection. If only these idiots appreciated it. But they can't, they're not me. He allowed himself a chuckle, though no one could hear it. His smugness was reaching levels that would make most people slap him, but thankfully, no one was in the car with him. Everyone's playing catch-up, but they don't realize they've already lost. Even Yamanaka's teammate, especially him. He probably thinks he can just muscle his way to the front like it's some kind of fistfight. Please, I've already calculated every move he'll make once he gets on the track. Not that it matters. We'll finish this race before he can even blink. He adjusted his glasses again, this time out of habit. They sat perfectly on his face. Just like everything else, they had to be perfect. My glasses, my vehicle, my lines, everything is flawless. Not a single wasted movement. These amateurs wouldn't understand, they just react. I predict. Another perfect turn. He could almost feel the distance between him and the rest of the pack growing. He checked his mirrors once again, catching a glimpse of Ino still fighting to hold her position. She's trying so hard. It's almost adorable. Almost. He frowned for a split second, but only because the thought of someone else thinking they were remotely close to his level was insulting. Ino probably thinks she's doing great right now. Maintaining her position, keeping the other cars at bay, but what she doesn't realize is that I've already mapped out the next 8 moves she's going to make. What a drag. Shikamaru sighed dramatically, his hands steady as ever on the wheel, the Lancer eating up the track like a predator stalking its prey. I suppose I'll let her have this little moment. It's not like she'll ever get closer to the front anyway. Maybe I should send her a postcard from the finish line. He laughed to himself, the sound echoing in the solitude of his car. His brain continued its over-analysis. Now, if I keep this pace, I'll finish with a lead of 2, maybe 3 seconds over second place. Unless Naruto does something reckless. But even then, the probability of him closing that gap is PFFT, negligible. He'll push that Chevelle too hard, and by the time he realizes it's not enough, it'll be too late. Shikamaru's smirk widened as he approached the next curve, taking it with pinpoint precision. He could practically feel the frustration of the other drivers in his rearview mirror. They're all so predictable, so average. He adjusted his glasses once more, a final gesture of smugness as he straightened out and prepared for the next series of turns. And with that, he sped down the track, utterly convinced that victory was already his. After all, Shikamaru Nara didn't just race. He raced. Motherf. Ino's curse tore through the cockpit, her grip tightening around the steering wheel as she watched the white Lancer just slip out of reach again. It was like trying to chase a ghost. Whenever she thought she had it, it would slip away, mocking her with its flawless, unbothered pace. Her knuckles were white, her face a mask of frustration. How the hell does he keep doing that? She muttered, her foot pressing harder on the accelerator. The sleek purple Porsche she was driving roared in response, but no matter how much she pushed, that damned Lancer remained infuriatingly ahead. So close, yet so far. Ino flashed back to earlier in the race when she'd almost pulled alongside the Mitsubishi, gunning it hard into a hairpin turn, her tires squealing against the asphalt. She could remember the exact moment she'd caught a glimpse of the driver, the cocky bastard behind the wheel. Shikamaru, with that arrogant smirk plastered across his face, had barely spared her a glance before casually pulling ahead, punishing her for being too aggressive with a perfect inside line. It drove her mad. Ino, are you listening? Sakura's voice crackled in her ear, but it sounded like nothing more than garbled static to her now. All she cared about was catching that smug prick in the Lancer. She leaned forward, trying to psych herself up. Come on, Ino, she growled under her breath. You're better than this. You've got the speed, you've got the skill. Just get in front of that goddamn ricer. Her eyes locked onto the Lancer's taillights like a hawk spotting its prey. Meanwhile, back in the pit booth, Sakura and Sasuke watched the screen, wide-eyed as Ino edged closer and closer to the Lancer. She's gaining on him, Sasuke muttered, eyebrow raised in surprise. He could see it now, Ino was narrowing the gap. Shikamaru had led the entire race so far, but Ino was clawing her way up. Maybe she's got a shot. Sakura wasn't so optimistic. Her eyes were glued to the countdown timer for the upcoming pit stops. She needs to make a clean stop soon, she said, worry creeping into her voice. Naruto's waiting for the handover, and she's pushing way too hard right now. Sasuke frowned as he looked at the screen. Wait, what the hell is she doing? His voice took on a sharp edge. On the monitor, Ino's car picked up speed instead of slowing down for the pit lane. Sakura's heart skipped a beat as she frantically grabbed her mic. Ino, slow the fuck down, you're gonna blow past the pit stop. She screamed, her voice loud enough to echo across the booth. Ino didn't respond. She didn't even flinch. Sakura's face paled as she saw the purple Porsche hurtling at full speed toward the pit lane. Sasuke swore under his breath, leaning forward like he was bracing for impact. Is she planning to crash into the fucking booth? Sasuke muttered, half joking but more than a little concerned. Ino, meanwhile, was laser-focused, her mind locked in a tunnel. The Lancer was so close she could practically smell the exhaust. She had taken off her headset earlier. Sakura's nagging had gotten too annoying, and now she was chasing the Lancer like her life depended on it. Come on, just one slip, that's all I need, she thought, teeth clenched as she stuck to Shikamaru's tail. The idea of losing to that condescending prick made her blood boil. She was willing the Lancer to make a mistake. In the white Mitsubishi Lancer Evo X, Shikamaru caught a glimpse of Ino's car in his rearview mirror and raised an eyebrow, a wry smile playing on his lips. Persistent, huh? He mused, easing up on the throttle just a little. His inner monologue kicked in as he watched her. Ino Yamanaka, he thought, a decent driver, but way too emotional. She's been tailing me for half the race, burning fuel and energy for no reason. Classic overcompensation. It's almost cute. His smirk grew wider, but ultimately futile. I'll just pull back and let her think she's winning for a moment. Give her a taste of victory before I remind her how the game's really played. As he eased into the next straight, Shikamaru slowed down slightly, letting Ino inch closer. He glanced in his rearview again, mock pity in his eyes. Go ahead, Ino. Take the bait. Ino's heart raced. The Lancer was losing speed. Finally, this was her chance. With a burst of adrenaline, she slammed her foot down and her Porsche shot past the white Lancer. Yes, she screamed, the rush of triumph surging through her veins as she blew past him. Fucking finally. She scrambled to put her headset back on, beaming with pride. Sakura, guess what? I just took care of our little JDM problem. You can thank me later, she said smugly. There was a brief moment of silence on the other end before Sakura's voice exploded into her ear like a bomb. Are you fucking insane? Ino blinked, the smile freezing on her face. What? You idiot. You blew past the pit stop. You were supposed to hand off to Naruto. You just messed up the whole race. Sakura's voice was on the edge of hysteria. Ino's stomach dropped as she suddenly remembered the Lancer slowing down. Oh shit. It hadn't been slowing down because she was winning. It had been heading into its pit stop. She'd blown right past her own. Oh, Ino muttered, her face turning pale. Oh, turn your dumb ass around and get to the pit stop right now. Sakura screamed. If you don't, I'm gonna drag you out of that car myself. Chill, I'm on my way. Ino stammered, trying to hold on to some shred of dignity as she made a sharp turn, heading back toward the pit lane. Her heart pounded in her chest. Great job, Ino. Just great. In the pit booth, chaos was breaking out. The rest of Team 7's crew were scrambling, watching in horror as their lead driver botched the handover. Every other team had completed their stops while Ino had been off chasing her personal vendetta with Shikamaru. They had lost precious time, and the gap was widening by the second. The announcer's voice boomed over the speakers, barely able to contain his amusement. Looks like Team 7's lead driver missed her bus stop. Might want to check the map next time, folks. Back in the pit lane, Naruto was pacing impatiently, watching the approaching Porsche with a scowl on his face. The moment the car rolled into the handover area, Naruto didn't even wait for it to fully stop. He jogged over, already yelling. Bring the flag, give me the fucking flag. He barked, practically yanking the baton from Ino's hand before bolting to his Chevelle, sprinting like he was participating in a different kind of race. Tires screeched as the monstrous Chevelle peeled out of the pit, roaring onto the track with Naruto determined to make up for lost time. As the noise died down, Sasuke turned to Ino, arms crossed, his face expressionless. What the hell were you thinking? He asked, his voice a flat, unimpressed drawl. Ino giggled nervously, scratching the back of her head. Got a little caught up in the moment? Sakura shot her a death glare, her hands gripping the edge of the pit booth. A little? You blew the whole fucking handover, Ino. We needed that to stay competitive. The rest of the crew stared daggers at Ino, shaking their heads in frustration. Ino shuffled awkwardly, avoiding eye contact. Right now, they needed a miracle to get anything out of this race. And everything was on Naruto's shoulders. The sun had set, and the air around the raceway was filled with the hum of engines, pop music blaring from nearby stalls, and the excited chatter of fans still buzzing from the day's events. The festivities were in full swing, but none of it mattered to Team 7. They sat in their booth, engulfed in a cloud of silent disbelief. Sakura sat hunched forward with her head in her hands, elbows digging into her knees as if she was physically holding herself together. Naruto and Shisui slumped on a nearby bench, their expressions locked in silent frustration. Sasuke, ever the stoic, sat beside Sakura, arms crossed, but his clenched jaw and narrowed eyes gave away the simmering anger. And then there was Ino. She was perched sideways in the open door of her car, one leg dangling out, phone in hand, her camera capturing her best angles as she recorded a video for her followers. "Hey, guys," she chirped, putting on her best smile, "just finished up our race today. Didn't go exactly as planned, but, you know, there's always next time. #track days #keep pushing." Naruto's eyes twitched at her nonchalance. Of course, she's already on her damn phone. Ino finished the video, tossed her hair back, and glanced over at the rest of the group, who were either too angry or too disappointed to even look at her. She sighed loudly, hoping someone would acknowledge her. "Oh, come on, you guys. What's with all the doom and gloom? We've still got 2 more races to bounce back." The silence was deafening. Ino rolled her eyes and leaned back against the seat. "Okay, seriously, are you all just gonna mope? The competition is good, I mean, did you see that Supra out there? That thing was flying." No one responded. "I'm just saying, we should, stop being so depressed. I know I made a mistake, but we'll fix it next race. Right?" Naruto's patience finally snapped. "A mistake? Ino, we could have actually finished strong today if you hadn't blown past the pit stop like a complete idiot." Ino glared at him, lifting her hands in mock surrender. Okay, I said I'm sorry. Geez, it's not like I meant to miss it. You act like I crashed or something." Sakura groaned, lifting her head from her hands. "Missing the pit stop is basically crashing in this race, dumbass. You cost us so much time. What the hell were you even thinking? I was trying to win." Ino snapped back defensively. "That stupid Lancer kept taunting me, and I." Naruto stood up from the bench, his hands waving in disbelief. "So instead of listening to Sakura and slowing down for the handover, you just went full-blown maniac trying to beat some guy who didn't even know you existed." "Hey," Ino shot back, her face scrunching up. "He totally knew I existed. I was right on his tail." Shisui shook his head, leaning forward with his hands clasped in front of him. "Ino, I swear to God, if you say one more thing about that damn Lancer, I'm going to." What are you gonna do, Shisui?" Ino challenged, folding her arms over her chest. "I already said I'm sorry. Everyone's acting like I destroyed the entire race when you did," Sakura yelled, standing up and pointing at her. "You literally ruined the race. Do you even realize how hard Naruto worked to close the gap after that? And you just casually breeze by like, oh, sorry, guys, oopsie." Ino huffed, leaning back. "Well, excuse me for trying to make a move. At least I'm out there fighting." "Fighting who, Ino?" Naruto exploded, pacing back and forth now. "You were fighting your own damn brain. Everyone else was racing, and you were out there playing fucking tag." Ino rolled her eyes. "Calm down, okay? I get it, I messed up. It's not like we can't recover." "Recover from what?" Shisui asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "From you setting our chances on fire and driving them off a cliff?" Sasuke finally chimed in, voice low and controlled, but every word was sharp. "Ino, this isn't just some fun weekend cruise. You can't afford to make mistakes like that. Not at this level." Ino threw up her hands. "Fine, I get it, everyone's mad at me. Can we please move on? It's over, and we still have 2 races left." Naruto stopped pacing and glared at her, hands on his hips. "And you think entrusting our chances of survival to your impulsive ass is supposed to cheer us up?" Before Ino could respond, the unmistakable growl of an engine filled the air, causing everyone to look up. 2 vehicles pulled up next to their booth, a sleek white Mitsubishi Lancer Evo X and an equally pristine Mazda RX-7, both glistening under the evening lights. Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Oh, great. Just what we need." The driver's side window of the Lancer lowered, and sure enough, there sat Shikamaru, his lazy eyes scanning the group with an amused expression. A familiar logo adorned the sides of both cars, a majestic black bull trotting gracefully. Team Matador. Ino's face lit up, but Naruto groaned audibly, rolling his eyes. This guy. Sakura glanced at the approaching cars and sighed heavily. Now what? Shikamaru sat in the driver's seat of his pristine white Mitsubishi Lancer Evo X, his hand resting casually on the wheel as he glanced at Team 7 in their booth. The group looked like they had just been put through the ringer, slumped in various states of exhaustion and frustration. He could practically feel the tension from where he was parked, and it made him chuckle to himself. Shisui was the first to break the silence, raising a hand in a flat greeting. "Hey," Shikamaru finally spoke, leaning slightly out of his window with a smug smile that immediately put the group on edge. Well, Team 7. I've got to say, inadequate showing today." His tone was deliberately condescending, and the look he gave them was almost too much for Sakura, who was already on edge. She glared at him, her fists tightening. Naruto, trying to ease the tension, forced a grin. "You drove really well today, Shikamaru. I mean it, you deserved the win." Shikamaru chuckled, adjusting his glasses with his index finger. "The winner was never in doubt," he murmured. Then, raising his voice, he said, "But I have to give special commendation to Ino Yamanaka." His eyes flicked over to Ino, who had her arms crossed and looked annoyed. "You've got some talent," he said, his tone dripping with smugness. "But you've still got a long way to go." Sakura frowned at him, her frustration bubbling over. Today was a one-off. There are 2 more races left. It's not over. Shikamaru smirked, clearly amused. "Confident, aren't you?" His eyes narrowed, gauging her response. "I'm guessing you're the team leader?" Sakura's brief pause gave her away, and Shikamaru chuckled. "Thought so. That's gotta be tough, holding a team together with so much latent potential." He said the last part with a mocking drawl, his smile growing wider as Sakura gritted her teeth. Ino, irritated but determined, leaned forward. "Don't get too comfortable, Shikamaru. We'll meet again on the track, and maybe I'll show you what my latent potential can really do." Shikamaru sized her up, his gaze lingering on her in a way that made her squirm. He tilted his head and smiled lazily. "Yamanaka, huh? I admire the confidence. You're quite the specimen to harbor this much zeal and unrefined talent." His voice dropped lower, carrying an implication that made Ino's skin crawl. She shot him a disgusted look but said nothing, biting her tongue. Shikamaru's smirk didn't waver as he continued, "I'm really looking forward to seeing what you can do next race." With that, he slowly rolled up his window and revved his engine, the sound of his Lancer filling the air as he pulled away. The white Mazda RX-7 followed closely behind, both cars disappearing into the night. The booth was silent for a moment before Naruto stood up, hands on his hips. "Alright, we really need to step up our game. Guys like Shikamaru are on another level." Sasuke nodded in agreement, his eyes narrowed and thought. "We're going to have to make modifications to stay competitive. There's no way we can beat them like this." Shisui rubbed the back of his neck. "Don't forget we've got a budget cap. We can't just throw money at the cars." Sasuke shrugged. "I know, but we can still look into squeezing out more horsepower. There's always room for improvement." Sakura let out a heavy sigh, clearly tired but still in charge. "We'll look into it, but engine upgrades aren't the priority right now." Naruto turned to her, confused. "What do you mean? If it's not the engine, then what is the priority?" Ino chimed in, leaning forward. "Yeah, what are we supposed to focus on if not the cars?" Sakura reached for her laptop and turned it toward the group. On the screen was a map of a small, twisty circuit, every turn marked with tight corners and hairpin bends. "This is what's next," she announced. "The next race is a drifting event." Naruto's face dropped. "You've got to be kidding me." He slumped back into his chair, cursing under his breath. "Why does it always have to be something I suck at?" Ino sighed deeply, resting her head in her hand. "Great. It's really over for us, isn't it?" Sakura closed the laptop with a snap, looking at the 2 of them with determination. "It's not over. You just have to practice even harder. We'll figure this out." Naruto groaned, still visualizing the twisted circuit on the screen as if it were his personal nemesis, while Ino quietly muttered to herself, "Might as well start preparing our sob story to give to Hiyashi when we get eliminated." The booth fell silent again, but the weight of what lay ahead was heavier than ever. 3 days later, Unison Park buzzed with activity, the air thick with the sound of screeching tires and the smell of burnt rubber. Team 7 had set up their little observation station just off the track, where Naruto was behind the wheel of Ino's Porsche, attempting to drift through the tight corners of the course. Unfortunately, it wasn't going well. Inside the car, Naruto was wrestling with the steering wheel like it was a wild animal. His knuckles were white from the grip as the car fought back against his attempts to slide it gracefully through the turn. Sasuke's voice came through the headset, sounding calm but a bit unsure. "Alright, Naruto, you need to approach the next hairpin at an angle. Let off the throttle a little earlier this time." Naruto grunted, eyes fixed on the upcoming turn. Right, angle, throttle, whatever the hell that means. He approached the next corner, jerking the steering wheel to the side. The car attempted to slide, but instead, it understeered badly, plowing through several traffic cones that lined the track. Shit, Naruto cursed, barely managing to regain control as the car bounced through the obstacle. "Watch my car." Ino's voice blared angrily through the headset, causing Naruto to wince. "You better not scratch it, you idiot." Sorry. Naruto apologized quickly, fumbling to get the car lined up for the next turn. "I swear, I got it this time." Meanwhile, at the side of the track, Ino and Sasuke stood watching the live video feed from Naruto's dashcam. The shaky, erratic movements of the camera mirrored Naruto's clumsy driving, each bump sending the view tilting off-center. Ino crossed her arms, grumbling. "I still can't believe we let Naruto drive for the next event. My Porsche, no less. We should have just let me do it." Sasuke sighed, his eyes still on the screen. "You're the reason we're in this mess in the first place, Ino." "I know I screwed up," Ino muttered, kicking a stray pebble on the ground. "But it's starting to feel like no one on this team even appreciates my talent anymore. I'm not a toddler, stop leaving me out of everything." Sasuke finally looked over at her, his expression softening. "I know you're good, Ino." Ino's ears perked up at that, and she blinked in surprise. "Wait, really? You think I'm good?" Sasuke rolled his eyes but smirked, reaching out to poke her forehead lightly. "You're talented, but all that talent doesn't mean shit if you don't keep a stable head on your shoulders." Ino blushed, her hand instinctively rising to touch where Sasuke poked her. "So, you actually think I'm talented?" Sasuke gave a small chuckle, shaking his head. "Obviously. You're a great driver. I'll brush off your last screw-up as a one-off thing. But," he added, his tone more serious, "you need to learn how to work as part of a team. It's not just about you." Ino leaned a bit closer to him, her voice lowering. "Maybe you could teach me how to coordinate better then." Sasuke raised an eyebrow, amused. "You do realize I'm not your only teammate, right?" Ino tilted her head, batting her eyelashes slightly. "Yeah, but you're my best teammate." Sasuke let out a laugh, shaking his head again. "You're impossible." As they shared a laugh, Sakura approached the observation setup, ticking something off on her notepad. She glanced up just in time to see Ino leaning into Sasuke, the two of them grinning at each other. Her steps faltered for a second, her eyes narrowing slightly before she shook her head and cleared her throat loudly. "Okay, team," she said, walking up and pretending she hadn't noticed anything. "We need to assess the data from Naruto's run." Sasuke and Ino immediately straightened up, their laughter dying down as they turned to face her. Sasuke cleared his throat, looking back at the screen. "Yeah, we've been assessing it. The Porsche's not set up for this kind of course, it's struggling with the drift. We'll need to tune it specifically for this event." Sakura nodded, crossing her arms. "And the Chevelle?" Sasuke winced. "It's even worse. We'll need some upgrades for sure. Rear sway bars, new tires, things like that. I made a list." He handed her a small slip of paper. Sakura took the list, her eyes scanning over it. "New tires, rear sway bars," she murmured to herself before sighing. "I have no idea what any of this means, but I trust you." Sasuke scratched the back of his head, fighting back a silly smile. "Shisui and I will handle it. Don't worry, we've got this." Sakura smiled warmly at him. "I know you will." Ino, who had been watching the exchange with narrowed eyes, jumped in, her tone a little sharper than before. "We should probably check on Naruto before he totals my car." As if on cue, the sound of screeching tires cut through the air, followed by a loud thud. All three of them turned to see Ino's Porsche spinning out wildly on the track, smoke rising from the tires as it skidded to a stop. Naruto's voice crackled through the laptop speakers. Guys? I think I need a break. Sasuke sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose as Ino groaned in frustration. Sakura just stood there, her hand covering her face as the chaos unfolded before them. Well, Sasuke muttered, at least he didn't crash this time. Ino shook her head. Yet, the three of them shared a resigned glance, knowing this was going to be a long day. The garage was filled with the steady clanking of metal tools and the smell of motor oil, as Sasuke leaned over the front of Ino's Porsche. His hands worked with quiet precision, trying to unbolt the engine so they could lift it with the overhead crane. A work lamp illuminated the sleek car, casting long shadows across the room. Beside him, Sakura stood, watching intently, trying to make sense of the mechanical maze under the hood. In the corner, Naruto sat with Ino, the two of them hunched over a map of the drift circuit, clearly out of their depth. Naruto tapped the map with a finger, scratching his head. Okay, so, we start here, right? He asked, his finger tracing a jagged line. And then we, somehow don't crash? Ino sighed, leaning back in her seat with a bored expression. Naruto, we've been over this 100 times. It's not that complicated. You drift through the corners, avoid slamming into the guardrails, and, I don't know, maybe try not to embarrass yourself? Naruto shot her a glare. Oh, good. The backup driver finally decided to give her expert input. Ino shrugged, flipping her hair over her shoulder, unbothered by the jab. Just saying, you've been practicing for days and still haven't gotten the hang of it. Naruto's eyes narrowed. At least I'm trying. It's not like you're volunteering to step up and take the wheel. Wouldn't have to if you didn't drive like a grandma on sleeping pills, Ino retorted. Alright, you two, Sasuke called from under the hood, his voice muffled as he reached for another bolt. Let's save the bickering for later. We still need to focus. Sakura, biting her lip, looked down at the set of shiny new accessories they'd bought for the car. She frowned in confusion. Sasuke, can you explain how all this stuff is supposed to help? I mean, it's all fancy and expensive, but I don't really get it. Sasuke grunted as he finally unbolted the engine, straightening up and wiping his hands on a rag. The upgrades will give us better handling and power in the turns. But, he added, glancing over at Naruto, it still depends on the driver. Even with a perfectly tuned car, if the driver doesn't know what they're doing, it won't matter. Ino snorted, crossing her arms. Well, if that's the case, we're screwed. Naruto, huddled over the circuit map with Ino, immediately caught the shade. He straightened up, tossing the map aside. Yeah, well, maybe if the backup driver, he emphasized, was more interested in driving and less in flirting, I wouldn't have to work so hard. Ino leaned back, completely unfazed. Flirting? Please, Naruto. I'm just making sure someone appreciates the skills I bring to this team. If you ever had any skills, you'd know what I mean. Why you? Ino does have a point. Shisui cut in from the corner, his tone teasing but sharp as he adjusted his goggles. He glanced at Naruto with a smirk. The car's good, but you still need to figure out the whole, not crashing, thing. Naruto threw his hands up in the air. Thanks, Shisui. Real helpful. Sasuke, shaking his head, gave a half smile. Sakura, can you grab the toolbox for me? It's over in the corner. Sure. Sakura perked up and rushed over to retrieve it. When she returned, Sasuke took it from her hands, his fingers briefly brushing hers. He gave her a small, genuine smile. Thanks, Sakura. You've been a big help. Sakura's cheeks flushed pink as she smiled back. Oh, I'm just doing what I can. I mean, I have no idea what you're doing, but... Sasuke chuckled, opening the toolbox. You don't have to. You're doing just fine regardless. Sakura smiled shyly, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I'm just doing what I can, even though I have no idea what you're doing. She chuckled, glancing at the scattered parts around them. I'm not exactly a mechanic. Sasuke grinned. Well, I wouldn't be able to do my job without you. Sakura's cheeks tinted a light pink. She let out a soft laugh, trying to mask her blush as she looked away. You're too kind, Sasuke. From his corner of the garage, Shisui made a gagging sound. Am I the only one hearing this? Seriously, you two need a reality check. We're on a clock here, people. Sakura rolled her eyes but quickly refocused on her laptop screen not far away. I'm running some tests on the data from Naruto's run. I think we can improve his times if... Improve my times? Naruto scoffed. I've already got this in the bag. Ino snickered, brushing her hair back. Yeah, the wrong bag, moron. We've been over this a million times. You're not breaking early enough into the turns. Naruto was about to retort when Ino's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then stood up, slinging her bag over her shoulder. Well, as much as I love this little powwow, my ride's here. Time for me to bounce. Shisui wiped his hands on a rag, tossing it aside. Don't worry, princess, we'll take good care of your car. Ino grinned, tossing a flirty look toward Sasuke. It's not like I could ask for a safer pair of hands to leave my baby in. She winked. Sakura, still working at her laptop, caught the exchange out of the corner of her eye and quietly rolled her eyes. Here we go again, she thought. Shisui noticed too, smirking to himself. A little nudge wouldn't hurt, he thought. Hey, Ino, Shisui suddenly called out. Why don't you give Naruto a ride home? It's getting late, and I'm sure Hinata wouldn't mind the company. Naruto's face immediately scrunched up. Wait, what? No, I'm good. I can. But before Naruto could finish, Shisui had already ushered him toward the door, whispering through clenched teeth, help a brother out, man. Give Sasuke and Sakura some space. Naruto blinked in realization, sighing. Damn it, Shisui. Ino shrugged, already halfway out the door. Fine by me. Come on, Naruto. Hinata won't bite, much. Naruto reluctantly followed, muttering curses under his breath. Just as they were stepping out, they bumped into Hinata, who was walking into the garage. She smiled softly at Ino. Hey. Oh, perfect timing. Ino chirped. Naruto's gonna tag along. Hope you don't mind. Hinata's eyes flickered toward Naruto, her posture stiffening a bit. Of course, that's fine. Naruto awkwardly rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, fine. The garage door had barely swung shut behind them when the sound of another door opening echoed through the room. Itachi stepped into the garage from the kitchen, wearing nothing but a bathrobe and his usual calm expression. Hey, Sasuke, you got a screwdriver? This guy. Sasuke groaned. What do you want, Itachi? Itachi raised an eyebrow. Just a screwdriver, really? He looked around the room and finally spotted Sakura standing a few feet away, staring at him like a deer caught in headlights. I didn't know you had company. Sakura's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her eyes were locked on Itachi, completely transfixed. She just stood there, lips slightly parted, as if the mere presence of the older Uchiha brother had short-circuited her brain. Sasuke, still mid-wrenching, glanced over, puzzled. Sakura, you good? Sakura didn't respond. She didn't even blink. Itachi noticed her stare and gave a small, polite nod. Evening, Sakura Haruno. Her lips moved, but again, nothing came out. Shisui snorted, unable to resist the opportunity. I don't think she can hear you, bro. Sasuke rolled his eyes, returning to his work. Oh, for fuck's sake. Sakura meanwhile was almost panicking. Her head was spinning, her mind scrambling to make sense of her situation as she became consumed in the moment. There he is, she thought, the man who can make oxygen seem optional. Itachi Uchiha. His presence alone feels like it's pressing down on me. Like gravity just got 10 times stronger. My knees, they're definitely weaker. Am I breathing? I think I forgot how to. How is he so perfect? His aura, suffocating, yes, but in the best way possible. I'm being crushed by his sheer perfection. I can feel it crawling up my spine, taking over every ounce of my body. I think I'm dying? And somehow, I don't mind. Itachi, don't you have something to like, screw or anything? Sasuke asked, pinching the bridge of his nose in frustration. Meanwhile Sakura was in her own world. My hand. Why is my hand moving? It's heading to my chest, like it's trying to keep my heart from exploding out of my ribcage. My breath? It's short, fast. What's happening? My heart is sprinting, like it's doing laps for the Konoha track team, and I'm about to pass out. Sakura? His voice. Itachi's voice, it slices through my paralysis like a knife and... Her thoughts were interrupted by Itachi reaching out to place a hand on her shoulder, concern etched on his features. Sakura failed to suppress her gasp, her heart rate accelerating to dangerous levels. His hand is on my shoulder. Is this real? Am I dreaming? Did I pass out and ascend to some heavenly dimension where Itachi Uchiha is touching me? Sakura, are you okay? Itachi asked, but Sakura still didn't respond. His voice is like silk. All my worries have evaporated. Just like that. The suffocating aura? Gone. Now all I feel is warmth. Safety. Comfort. Sakura managed a weak nod, stuttering out the first thing she could think of. I am just tired, yeah, just really tired. Sasuke, who's been watching the whole time, cursed internally. With a thin-lipped smile, he shoved a screwdriver into Itachi's hand a little too forcefully. Here, Sasuke said, his voice calm but the tension palpable. You got what you needed. You can leave now. Itachi's eyes flickered from the screwdriver to Sasuke's outstretched arm. He frowned slightly, then turned to Sakura again, concern still etched on his flawless face. He stepped forward, just a bit, but Sasuke's arm shot up between him and Sakura. She's fine, Sasuke declared, defensive frustration lacing his voice. Sakura struggled to speak, but she was still in shock. I should say something, but my mouth isn't working. My brain isn't working. Did he really just touch my shoulder? Meanwhile, Naruto turned to Hinata, clearly eager to leave. Hey, Hinata, can we? But his words caught in his throat as he noticed Hinata, staring at Itachi, her eyes wide with awe. She breathed out softly, barely audible, utterly immaculate. Naruto did a double take. What? Itachi, finally done with the screwdriver, gave a small nod of appreciation and turned to leave. Well, I'll be going then. But before he could, something snaps in Sakura. Gathering courage, she blurts out, wait. Everyone stopped. Itachi looked back, eyebrow raised. Can I, she stammered, suddenly unsure of how to phrase her words without sounding insane. Give you my number? Itachi's lips curled into the smallest smirk, one that sends another wave of heat rushing to her face. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out his phone, and with a few taps, held it up to Sakura. Wait, I already gave him my number? Sakura stared, blinking at his phone in disbelief. Then, slowly, she glanced down at her hands, where she's suddenly holding a pen and a note. When did I even get these? Sakura swallowed, trying to say something, anything, but instead, all that came out was a weak, defeated nod. She meekly retreated to her laptop like a soldier who just lost the battle of a lifetime. Sasuke, standing rigid beside her, was practically vibrating with rage. His jaw clenched so tightly he was surprised he didn't break a tooth. But he managed to keep it together, his voice ice cold and just a bit passive-aggressive. Alright, Itachi, thanks for stopping by. I'll show you out. Without another word, Sasuke practically dragged Itachi to the door, slamming it behind him a bit too forcefully. Naruto, witnessing the entire ordeal, took the opportunity to snap Hinata out of her trance. Hinata? Earth to Hinata? Hinata blinked, finally breaking free from Itachi's spell. Oh, alright, I was going to give you a ride home. Naruto scratched his head, still a bit confused by everything that just happened. Yeah, let's get going. As they left, the garage felt oddly quiet. It was just Sakura, Sasuke, and Shisui left. Shisui, who had been watching the whole circus unfold with an amused smirk, leaned back against the wall, hands behind his head. He glanced at Sasuke, then at Sakura, then back to Sasuke. Well, Shisui said, eyes twinkling with mischief, that went well, don't you think, Sasuke? Sasuke growled something incomprehensible under his breath, glaring at the spot where Itachi had been standing. Shisui chuckled. Don't worry, Sasuke. There's still plenty of night left for you to, you know. Sakura curiously looked up from her laptop, face still burning. Sasuke gave Shisui a murderous look, but his cousin could see the faintest hint of a blush creeping onto his cheeks. Shisui shrugged. Just saying, bro. Sasuke's hand clenched into a fist. He turned back to the car engine, muttering under his breath, shut up and hand me the wrench. The BMW purred softly as it cruised down the winding mountain road that evening, leaving the luxurious neighborhood behind. The streetlights flickered through the trees as the car glided downhill, the road twisting like a lazy snake. Naruto leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, staring out the window. Then he chuckled, a low, amused sound that broke the comfortable silence. Hinata glanced at him, her soft lavender eyes curious. What's so funny? She asked, her voice gentle as always. Naruto hesitated for a moment, debating if he should say it. He didn't want to sound like an idiot, but the thought kept nagging at him. Finally, he gave in. It's just, this road. It reminded me of the drifting event I gotta do for the tournament. Hinata's lips curled into a small smile. You're going to kill it, she said confidently, eyes back on the road. Naruto waved off her compliment, shaking his head. Nah, not really. He rubbed the back of his neck, groaning a little. Truth is, I kinda suck at drifting. Hinata's eyes widened slightly, surprised. Really? She hadn't expected that. In her mind, Naruto was a pretty good driver. Naruto sighed, looking out the window again. Yeah, really. I don't know what it is. I can't get the timing right or something. And it's not like I can just not do it. The team's counting on me to pull a good score so we can move on to the final event, but... He trailed off, clearly frustrated. Hinata softened at his words, her heart warming with empathy. She could feel the weight of the pressure he was under, and it hurt to hear him sound so dejected. Realizing he was venting a little too much, Naruto backtracked. Sorry, Hinata, didn't mean to dump all my problems on you. I know you probably don't want to hear about this stuff. Hinata immediately shook her head, cutting him off before he could apologize further. No, it's okay, she said quickly. Really, I can tell it's important to you. And I understand. Her voice was soft, but her sincerity was clear. Naruto looked at her, a little surprised. You do? Hinata nodded, her hands tightening on the steering wheel just slightly. You shouldn't stop pushing yourself to get better. I know it's hard, but if you believe in yourself, you can do it. I believe in you. There was a beat of silence as Naruto took in her words. Her belief in him was like a warm, comforting blanket, and for a moment, the pressure didn't feel quite so suffocating. He smiled at her, his usual playful grin returning. Thanks, Hinata. You've always had a big heart. The air between them turned quiet again, but this time it was awkward. Naruto stared out of the corner of his eye, watching Hinata as she focused on the road. She looked so calm, so sure of herself. He couldn't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe he could ask her for a favor. His mind started racing. Could she vouch for me with Hiyashi? Maybe if... No, that's dumb. I can't just ask her to bail me out. They weren't even that close anymore. It would come off as weird, wouldn't it? Just as Naruto was about to mentally scold himself for even considering it, Hinata spoke up, her voice so low he almost didn't catch it. What if I helped you? Naruto blinked, confused. Huh? What did you say? Hinata hesitated for a second, her bangs falling slightly into her face, hiding her expression. She took a deep breath before repeating herself, her voice a little firmer this time. I said, I could teach you to drift. Naruto blinked again, staring at her as if she had just suggested they get married. Wait, you? Hinata didn't look at him, her hands gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. Yes, I want to help you. For a long moment, Naruto didn't say anything. He was in disbelief. Then he chuckled, shaking his head. I mean, I appreciate the offer, but come on, I don't want to bother you with my problems. You've got better things to do, right? But Hinata didn't respond. Instead, she pressed her foot down on the gas pedal, and the BMW surged forward. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. Hinata? What are you doing? She didn't answer, her focus now entirely on the road ahead. The car was speeding up, the engine growling louder as they approached a sharp hairpin turn up ahead. Naruto's heart started pounding. Hinata, slow down, we're gonna... But before he could finish his sentence, Hinata momentarily lifted her foot off the gas and yanked the steering wheel sharply to the left. The car's back end swung out, tires screeching against the asphalt as she expertly pulled the e-brake and executed a perfect drift through the tight corner. Naruto's jaw dropped. His eyes were wide, his knuckles white as he gripped the door handle. What the? Before he could even process what just happened, Hinata smoothly transitioned into the next turn, drifting flawlessly again. The BMW glided through the curves with a grace that Naruto could only dream of achieving. By the time they reached the bottom of the hill, Naruto's mouth was still hanging open. He turned to her, his voice a mix of awe and disbelief. What just happened? Hinata's face was pink. Her eyes focused straight ahead as she drove much more calmly now. She swallowed, then meekly replied, I want to help. Naruto sat there, staring at her in stunned silence. The girl who used to faint whenever he even looked in her direction in middle school had just drifted down a mountain road like she was in Fast and Furious. Maybe, just maybe, he had been seriously underestimating Hinata Hyuga. The atmosphere at the drift event was electric. The air was thick with excitement, the scent of burnt rubber and engine oil mingling with the upbeat music that pounded through the speakers. A white Mazda RX-7 screeched around a corner, its tires kicking up a cloud of smoke as the announcer's voice boomed over the PA system, hyping up the crowd. Advertisement banners from dozens of sponsors fluttered in the wind, along with bright balloons and blimps, adding a festive edge to the competitive event. Spectators roared as the RX-7 flawlessly executed a high-speed drift, weaving through the track's tight turns. The sound of revving engines and squealing tires was a constant backdrop as teams prepped for their turn in their respective booths. Brightly colored cars dotted the pit area, surrounded by fans and journalists snapping photos and chatting up the drivers. Each booth had its own fanbase, crowds of people snapping pictures and taking videos of the vibrantly colored cars parked in front of them. Team 7's booth was no exception. In front of it, Ino's Porsche 911 Carrera GTS stood as a spectacle in itself, surrounded by fans and camera crews who couldn't get enough of its new facelift. The sleek, bright yellow paint glistened in the sun. The massive rear spoiler and lowered stance only added to its allure. A floral vinyl of purple and red flowers decorated its sides, contrasting sharply with the bold 7 logo on the front panels. Hiashi's Hyuga Enterprises emblem took up the entire rear windshield, marking their sole sponsorship. Ino was standing just beside the car, mid-interview with a journalist who'd been going around collecting thoughts from the drivers. "It's a beautiful machine, really," Ino gushed, gesturing at the Porsche. "But it's not just about looks, she can perform." Meanwhile, Naruto stood with Shisui in the corner of their booth, eyeing his own car, the Chevelle that, while no slouch, wasn't as decked out as some of the other cars around. He crossed his arms and nodded toward the row of other cars. "You notice how almost every other car out there has more than one sponsor?" Shisui didn't even look up from the clipboard in his hand as he made some final notes. "Doesn't matter. Hiyashi's sponsorship is more than enough. That man's name carries weight. Besides," he added with a grin, "if we win, we'll be swimming in sponsors." Naruto nodded, but his stomach still churned. "Yeah, I guess you're right." Inside the booth, Sakura and Sasuke were watching the live broadcast of the event on a laptop, eyes glued to the screen as the Mazda finished its run. Another laptop lay open beside them, displaying the engine data from Ino's Porsche dyno runs. Sakura leaned in, double-checking the readouts. "We managed to squeeze out another 45 horsepower from Ino's engine. Should help Naruto out a bit, but we'll see," Sakura muttered to herself. Sasuke, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, merely raised an eyebrow. "Let's just hope it's enough for him to handle those turns. Last thing we need is Naruto flying off the track." Sakura shot him a glance. "He's been putting in extra hours, he'll be fine." Sasuke shrugged, smirking. "If you say so." As the Mazda's run ended, Ino returned to the booth, looking flushed with excitement. She practically bounced over to them. "Okay, you guys, we're up next. How are we feeling?" she asked, flashing a bright smile at Naruto. Naruto cracked his knuckles, trying to hide the nervousness creeping up on him. "I'm feeling ready, I think." He shot a glance at Sakura, who gave him a reassuring nod. "You'll do great," Sakura said, walking up next to him. "Just keep calm and try to show off for the judges. They love style points, so if you can finish strong, we'll be set for the next event." Naruto grimaced slightly but nodded. "No pressure, right?" A race official suddenly appeared at the entrance of their booth, clipboard in hand. "Team 7, you're up. Start warming up your car." Naruto took a deep breath. "Alright, let's do this." He walked toward Ino's Porsche and slid into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel as if his life depended on it. As he started the engine, a low rumble filled the booth, and the car began to roll slowly toward the track starting line. Sakura jogged alongside him, leaning down to give instructions through the open window. "Remember, Naruto, take those turns wide if you need to, and try to keep the back end swinging. Show off a bit for the crowd and the judges. And don't forget, finish strong." Naruto chuckled nervously. Yeah, I'll try not to wreck it, alright?" As they approached the starting line, Naruto revved the engine, trying to shake off the nerves building in his chest. Ahead of him, a red, vibrantly decorated Nissan Silvia S15 was finishing its run, the sound of screeching tires filling the air as it peeled off into the final corner. Meanwhile, Sakura had jogged back to the booth, taking her place next to Sasuke and Shisui as they gathered around the screen to watch Naruto's run. "He's got this, right?" Ino asked, bouncing on the balls of her feet. Sasuke shrugged. He's been practicing. Gee, thanks for the vote of confidence, Ino said, rolling her eyes. Looks like the polar bears just locked in a 7, 8, and another 7 from the judges. A solid run, the announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. Next up, we've got Team 7, running a Porsche 911 Carrera GTS with some absolutely stunning vinyl work. You've gotta love those floral decals. At hearing this, Ino beamed proudly at the compliment. She turned to Sasuke, nudging him. Did you hear that? They love my vinyls. Sasuke gave her a small smile. It's pretty, he admitted, though his eyes were already back on the screen, watching the leaderboard shift with each new score. At the starting line, Naruto was feeling the pressure. He could hear the crowd, the cheers getting louder as his name was called over the speakers. His heart was pounding, but he closed his eyes for a moment, thinking back to his training with Hinata, the hours spent on that winding mountain road, her calm voice guiding him through each drift. Focus on having fun, she'd said. He opened his eyes, exhaling slowly. Right, fun. The coordinator raised the flag, signaling for Naruto to rev the engine. The roar of the Porsche filled his ears, and he could feel the vibrations beneath him. This was it. Sakura's voice came through the headset, clear but with an edge of urgency. You good? Yeah, Naruto replied, exhaling deeply. I'm good. Remember, Naruto, Sakura continued, her tone softening slightly, you've put in the work. Now show them what you've got. Good luck, Naruto. No room for error here. Naruto's grip tightened on the wheel as the flag dropped. The crowd roared louder as the announcer's voice boomed one final time. Team 7 had one shot. And it was all on Naruto. The roar of the engine filled the air as Naruto peeled off from the start line, the Porsche's tires screeching against the asphalt. The sound of the announcer's voice echoed through the track, excitement evident as he called out Team 7's run. And here goes Naruto Uzumaki in Team 7's Porsche 911. Look at that takeoff. Naruto's grip tightened on the steering wheel as the car surged forward down the straight. His eyes flicked to the speedometer, watching the needle climb. The initial stretch was easy. He knew he had to gain enough speed here to handle the turns that lay ahead. You're picking up good speed, Naruto, Sakura's voice came through his headset. But get ready for the first turn. It's a 90-degree left. Got it, Naruto replied, his voice steady despite the tension. The first turn loomed ahead. Without hesitating, Naruto adjusted the wheel, letting the car glide into a slight drift. As the turn approached, he twisted the wheel sharply, forcing the car into a full slide. The tires screamed against the track, smoke billowing up behind him as the Porsche's rear end swung wide. Naruto kept the wheel steady, eyes sharp as he held the car in control through the corner. The crowd erupted in cheers, and the announcer's voice rang out, full of approval. A strong start for Team 7. Look at that drift. Nice, Naruto, Sakura's voice came through again. Stay sharp. Plenty more ahead. Naruto glanced at the dashboard, noting his speed. He was hitting around 60 km per hour and climbing. Decent. The next turn was already approaching. He took a breath, focusing as he set up for the next drift. With practiced precision, he swung the car into another wide slide, tires screeching as the Porsche glided smoothly through the curve. The pungent smell of burning rubber filled the cockpit, and Naruto tightened his grip on the wheel, fighting to keep control. The adrenaline pulsed through him, but he stayed focused. This was it. He needed a flawless run. In the booth, Team 7 watched intently. Sasuke leaned in, eyes glued to the screen displaying Naruto's progress. He's good, Sasuke muttered, but there was a hint of worry in his tone. But good might not be enough. Sakura exhaled, trying to remain calm as she kept an eye on the data streaming from the car's performance. He just has to hold it together. Naruto's voice crackled through the headset. I'm doing my best, he said, grunting as he shifted gears and slid into another left turn, seamlessly transitioning into the next. The crowd's cheers grew louder as the Porsche danced across the track, its rear tires sending up more smoke with each perfect drift. The announcer's voice was full of energy. Naruto Uzumaki is pulling off a solid run. Look at those transitions, folks. Naruto bit his lip, keeping his eyes focused. His mind wandered briefly to the countless hours of practice he'd put in on the winding mountain roads with Hinata. She had a way of making it look so easy, her heavy BMW gliding through the curves like it was made for them. Just have fun, Hinata had told him back then, her soft voice full of encouragement. Remember, it's not about speed, drifting is about showing off. Style over formula. Naruto smirked, remembering those words. Style over formula. His heart was pounding, but a sense of calm washed over him. He could feel the eyes of the crowd on him, the weight of their expectations. Sakura, he called out into the mic, a sudden burst of confidence surging through him. I'm going to take some risks. What? Sakura's voice shot back, alarmed. What do you mean, risks? Naruto grinned, feeling a thrill pulse through him. I'm gonna show off. It's the only way we're winning this. You're insane. Sakura protested, but Naruto could hear the tension in her voice. Just stick to the plan. Before Naruto could respond, Ino's voice cut in. Naruto, don't you dare mess up my car. I swear if you can't make any promises, Ino, Naruto chuckled, his grip tightening as the next turn approached. He ignored her furious response, his focus sharpening. He had to do this. The next turn was coming up fast, a sharp corner that could make or break the run. But instead of following the usual drift procedure, Naruto cranked the wheel early, throwing the car into a drift along the very edge of the track, the rear tires nearly skimming the edge of the asphalt. The Porsche slid sideways, tires screaming as it maintained its sideways trajectory, barely keeping its grip. The crowd went wild, and the announcer's voice was almost disbelieving. Whoa, Naruto is really pushing it now. That's some daring driving from Team 7. In the booth, Sasuke's eyes widened. He's chaining the drifts together. Sakura leaned forward, her hands balled into fists. Come on, Naruto. Back on the track, Naruto continued to link his drifts together, sliding the Porsche through one turn after another with precision, the rear bumper coming dangerously close to the barriers. He pushed the car harder, the crowd roaring with each risky maneuver. The announcer's voice was almost breathless. This is incredible. Naruto Uzumaki is putting on a show for the judges. In the driver's seat, Naruto could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins. His hands moved instinctively, the car responding to his every command as he chained the drifts, sliding through each turn with style. He felt like he was floating on air, the tension giving way to pure exhilaration. Sakura, he called out, his breath heavy. I'm gonna try one more thing. Naruto, no. Sakura's voice was sharp with panic. Don't do anything stupid. But Naruto didn't hear her. He gunned the engine, the Porsche surging forward as the final stretch of the track came into view, a tricky S-curve with mild bends. With a deep breath, Naruto twisted the steering wheel and yanked the emergency brake, sending the car into a wild spin. The Porsche whipped around on its axis, turning a full 120 degrees as it slid toward the first curve, its rear nearly scraping the barrier. In the booth, Ino let out a string of curses. He's going to wreck it. But Naruto kept his focus. The car slid through the curve with expert precision, narrowly avoiding the barrier. His knuckles whitened as he fought to keep the Porsche under control. The second curve approached fast. With another twist of the wheel, Naruto forced the car into a full 360-degree spin, the tires screeching as the Porsche drifted through the curve, miraculously staying on track. The crowd exploded with cheers as the car sailed across the finish line, a cloud of smoke trailing in its wake. Naruto's heart was pounding, his chest heaving as the Porsche came to a stop. The announcer's voice was full of excitement. What an incredible run by Naruto Uzumaki. Team 7 has certainly made their mark. Naruto slumped back in his seat, a grin spreading across his face as the cheers of the crowd washed over him. He had done it. Team 7's booth was alive with chatter and laughter as the day's race came to a close. The roar of the crowd had faded, replaced by the hum of conversation and the occasional burst of music from nearby speakers. Journalists snapped photos while fans flocked around the various teams, hoping for autographs or just a chance to chat. Over in one corner of the lot, a couple of racers were putting on a show for the crowd, doing burnouts and donuts, sending plumes of smoke into the evening air. In the booth, Sasuke, Sakura, Shisui, Naruto, and Ino were sitting around an open cooler in the middle, each with a cold can of beer in hand. The celebration was well-deserved. Naruto had just pulled off an incredible run, the judges awarding him a near-perfect score, 10, 9, and 10. He'd set a new track record, and with that, Team 7 had climbed to 6 points, putting them in third place overall. They were right behind Matador at 10 points and Polar Bears at 7. Sasuke clapped Naruto on the back, smirking. "You did good out there, dumbass," he said. Naruto tried to play it off, giving a mock casual shrug. "Yeah, well, couldn't have done it without you guys." Sakura, sitting next to him, raised an eyebrow, a grin playing on her lips. "Since when are you the modest type, Naruto? Thought that was beneath you." Naruto burst out laughing. "Oi, don't get used to it. I'm just saying, it wasn't just me out there." It was Sakura's guiding voice, Sasuke and Shisui putting the car together, and Ino letting me drive her precious Porsche. All of us made this happen. Shisui raised his can of beer, a wide smile on his face. "A toast to us, then. Team 7, best damn team on the circuit." Everyone clinked their cans together, cheering loudly. Just as they were settling back into their seats, Shikamaru strolled into the booth, hands casually stuffed in his pockets. He was accompanied by a large, stocky guy with a kind face, carrying what looked like a bag of snacks. Naruto immediately recognized him as Akamichi Choji, Shikamaru's teammate. "Hello," Shikamaru greeted, with his usual laid-back tone. "Just came to say congrats on that run. Damn impressive." Sakura rolled her eyes, her smile fading. "What do you want, Shikamaru? Didn't think you were the type to drop by without a reason." Shikamaru chuckled, shaking his head. "No hidden agenda, promise. Just came to give you guys some credit where it's due." He turned to Naruto, giving him a nod of acknowledgement. "Naruto, that drift work was something else. Didn't know you had it in you." Naruto grinned, scratching the back of his head. "Hey, thanks, man. I was just trying not to screw up." "Well, you didn't," Shikamaru said, a small smirk playing on his lips. "You actually surprised me. I thought Ino was gonna be behind the wheel today. Figured she'd be the better driver." Ino, who'd been sipping her beer, nearly choked on it. "Wait, what? Why the hell would you think that?" she demanded, shooting him a sharp look. Shikamaru shrugged. "For one, it was your car out there. Just assumed you'd be driving it. You always struck me as the type to be good at this." Ino huffed, crossing her arms. "I'm not that great at drifting, alright? Naruto's been better in training, so we let him drive." Sasuke chimed in, glancing at Ino with a smug look. "Yeah, Naruto's got more promise when it comes to this stuff." Seemed like the smarter choice. Ino stiffened slightly at Sasuke's words, clearly caught off guard, but she quickly composed herself. Shikamaru, ever the observant one, didn't miss the reaction and grinned to himself. He'd always enjoyed pushing people's buttons. "Well, either way," Shikamaru said, smoothly changing the topic, "I'm looking forward to facing off with you guys in the next round. Hopefully, we'll both be heading to the next stage of the tournament." He shot a glance at Ino, the corners of his mouth curling into a warm smile. "And hey, Ino, I'd like to see a rematch between us. You gave me a real run for my money in the last race. I want to see what you're really capable of." Ino's face turned a light shade of pink, and she stuttered slightly, "Why yeah. Maybe, we'll see what happens." As Shikamaru and Choji waved goodbye and left the booth, Ino remained standing, looking slightly flustered. Sakura, noticing Ino's reaction, smirked. Well. Looks like someone got some validation they weren't expecting." Ino spun around, scowling. "Oh, shut up, forehead. I just didn't think he'd say that, that's all." Naruto and Sasuke both snorted with laughter, but before Ino could throw her beer can at them, Sakura stood up and called for everyone's attention. "Alright. Listen up, assholes. We did great today, no doubt, but we've got to start thinking about the next stage. Matador is going to be a pain in the ass again, so we need to figure out how we're going to take them down." The group nodded in agreement, the competitive fire already igniting in their eyes. Shisui raised his hand, still holding his beer. "Sakura's right, but for now, can we just enjoy this win? I mean, we're third on the damn leaderboard. That's worth celebrating." Naruto grinned, holding up his can. "Hell yeah. Today wasn't easy, so let's enjoy it while we can." Ino, still slightly pink in the cheeks, suddenly jumped up with excitement. "Group selfie time," she declared, pulling a selfie stick out of her purse. Everyone groaned, but none of them resisted. They all gathered around, grinning as Ino held the stick out in front of them. "Alright, say, we're freaking awesome," she yelled. "We're freaking awesome," they chorused, laughing as the phone snapped a picture of them mid-celebration. As they finished, Naruto's thoughts drifted back to his training with Hinata. He could still picture her calmly guiding him through the mountain roads, her advice echoing in his head as he took on the turns today. She'd helped him more than she'd probably realized, and he knew he needed to thank her for that. Smiling to himself, Naruto cracked open another beer, ready to soak in the moment with his team. The next race could wait. Today, they were champions. That's all for my now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.